Chapter 1132. Not only the Golden Rock Sage. Even Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan's eyelids twitched when they saw Lin Feng's god of war clone suddenly transform into his original body. With their eyesight, they could naturally tell that this was not a transformation technique, nor was Lin Feng's original body disguised as the god of war clone. Instead, in that instant, the god of war clone suddenly transformed into Lin Feng's original body. His original body should have been in the Spirit Abyss mountain range of Infinite Wasteland. Otherwise, the Great Sage and Zhu Yan Great Sage would have sensed something was wrong first. Yan Nanlai frowned slightly. Separated by two realms, can the original body really swap places with the clone? In that case, it was the same in the Netherworld Sea. Back then in the desolate ancient Star Sea, even though his starry sea gate was sealed, his original body could actually descend through the same method. Yan Nanlai took a deep breath. This person's comprehension of the mysteries of space is indeed unique. Zhou Diliang sat cross-legged in the Grand Imperial Palace, looking at Lin Feng's original body in the void. In his heart, he was thinking about the Battle of the Ying Sea back then. Could he be like this back then? Lin Feng did not pay much attention to Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan's guesses. At this moment, he was looking at the piece of bone that made one's heart tremble. His eyes narrowed slightly. The remains of Yuhuang Heaven Sea? But how did the Golden Rock get this thing? More than 200 years ago in the vast Thousand Worlds, the Golden Rock Sage was much more high-profile than he was now. In the era when the dragon race lived in seclusion in the Xianhai Sea, and the ape race lived in seclusion in the Spirit Abyss Mountain, he was one of the most active great demons in Infinite Wasteland. About 200 years ago, the Golden Rock Great Sage suddenly became low-key, and his whereabouts became more and more secretive. The Cloud Forest Realm incident back then, as well as the appearance of the Ying Sea's three mountains, were his rare high-profile actions. Usually he did not show himself. Some information regarding the Golden Rock Sage flashed through Lin Feng's mind. Following the excavation of Yuhuang Tianhai's former residence, the Golden Rock Sage grasped some substantial clues. Using this as a starting point, it seems like he has gained quite a bit. When he cultivated Yude Minghua previously, it was an embodiment of deep accumulation. However, I'm afraid everyone had still underestimated him back then. The things he grasped in his hands were much more than expected. As he thought about it, Lin Feng unleashed his powers. A vast purple aura spread out in the surroundings, isolating the purple light from the bones. At the same time, he tried to figure out the concept of power contained within. Although the purple light shook the void, it could not do anything to Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng's heart sank slightly. The power contained in this bone is very unstable. If it were to explode to its limit, it would not be to be underestimated. I'm afraid it would not be inferior to the Sky Destroyer Sword and the Haotian Mirror. No wonder the Enchantress, the Great Sage, and the rest didn't touch the Golden Rock Great Sage easily. If he used his trump card, no one would have an easy time. However, if the power in this bone was completely activated, it would be exhausted afterward. The Golden Rock Great Sage himself would not use this trump card easily. This kind of trump card is the strongest deterrent force. Moreover, he still needs this bone to open the black hole, so he would not waste it easily. As he thought about it, Lin Feng realized that as he got closer to the black hole, the light on the surface of the bone became more and more dazzling. The waves of power within it also became more and more unstable. Moreover, the powerful power of the bone became more and more concentrated. It was as if a hazy consciousness had awoken and was focusing all its attention on him. Lin Feng scanned with his consciousness and realized that compared to Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan, he was much closer to the black hole. Obviously, other than the Golden Rock Great Sage, the first person to approach the black hole would become the target of the bone's attack. Now that he had successfully opened the door, the Golden Rock Great Sage no longer had any misgivings and finally released his trump card. Thinking about it, the value of the existence in the black hole was higher and more attractive to him. As long as he could successfully occupy the black hole, the loss of the bone would be more than enough to make up for it. The Golden Rock Great Sage understood this very well. But now, the problem between Lin Feng, Yan Nanlai, and Liang Pan was that the first person to catch up to the Golden Rock Great Sage would inevitably suffer a thunderous blow. It might even be an unbearable disaster. But the first person to take the blame would pave the way for the others. But among the three parties, who would be willing to sacrifice themselves for others? In the Imperial Emperor's palace, Liang Pan looked at Lin Feng with a deep gaze. Yan Nanlai also frowned slightly and his gaze fell on Lin Feng. If Lin Feng was willing to unseal the sky-crushing sword, then he would have a fighting chance against this bone. Moreover, because this bone was a one-time use treasure, it would no longer be a threat after blocking the first round of attacks. But Lin Feng had sealed the sky-crushing sword for the second time, so he naturally gave up halfway. Of course, if Lin Feng really unsealed the sky-crushing sword and let loose, then everyone present together might not be a match for him. This also made the others feel complicated. As the Golden Rock Great Sage flew, his gaze also fell on Lin Feng. If he had known that Lin Feng's main body could return to the Divine Land so quickly, he would have naturally made a different plan. The Haotian mirror could leave the Divine Land. The bone in his hand could deter others, but not Lin Feng, as long as Lin Feng was willing to unseal the sky-crushing sword. On the other hand, if Lin Feng's main body unsealed the sky-crushing sword and fought with the bone, then the Great Sage and Zhu Yan Great Sage would no longer have any scruples in the infinite wasteland. They could seize the opportunity to break through Lin Feng's Yujing Mountain, an yin and yang life and death formation. The battle was intertwined, and the slightest change could affect the whole situation. A stalemate in one area could be broken at any time due to changes elsewhere. Now that things had come to this, the Golden Rock Great Sage had no choice but to release his bow. Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan, the Emperor of Zhou, also looked at Lin Feng, waiting to see what he would choose. If Lin Feng left the sky-crushing sword in the infinite wasteland's Spirit Abyss Mountain, and did not bring it back to the Divine Land, then the current situation would be even more delicate. Looking at this scene, Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. In the past, it was the experts of the demon race who guarded against his sky-crushing sword, and the Haotian mirror of the Taishu Temple. He did not expect the tables to turn. This time it was his Yan Nanlai Liang Pan, and the others' turn to experience the same feeling. However, Lin Feng's expression did not show the slightest hesitation. He smiled faintly and continued to rush toward the black hole, as if he did not care about the bone whose power waves were getting stronger and stronger. The power waves of the bone continued to increase, and a vast purple light filled the void. Countless complicated runes danced in the purple light, engraved on every inch of space, causing the entire world to turn purple. At this moment, the broken ground below collapsed even more, and countless things were crushed into powder. The black hole above that could swallow the heavens and devour the earth seemed to have become much quieter. Between heaven and earth, there was only endless purple light shining. The space began to turn into nothingness, as if only the rolling purple light was real. Everywhere in the Divine Land near the Great Lane Temple, all living beings felt their hearts tremble. It was as if they wanted to prostrate themselves to stop the throbbing in their hearts. In the direction of Kunlun Mountain, Wang Lin and his brothers, Xianmen Tianzong and the other experts of the primordial spirit realm, Zhuge Zhan, and the others also looked in the direction of the Great Lane Temple. The sky in that direction had been dyed purple. Zen Master Dade's expression was solemn, and his eyes were complicated. He put his palms together and did not say a word. Although Qin Emperor Stonefeather, Dao Master Luo Fu, and the other experts of the human race, as well as the demons who were fighting with them, did not stop fighting, they also diverted part of their attention to the direction of the Great Lane Temple. Stonefeather stood above the immortal Dragon City, looking north in the southern wasteland of the Divine Land. His expression was calm, and his eyes flickered slightly. The experts who were far away from the Great Lane Temple all noticed the movement here. Lin Feng and the others who were facing its sharpness naturally felt it more clearly. Yan Nanlai took a deep breath. He knew that even if he had the mark of Taishu, if he took the attack of the bone alone, the result would not bode well. It was very likely that he would be killed by the bone's full power. That was a power that completely surpassed the Dharma-ending realm. Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou's face was as dark as still water. He sat in the Supreme Imperial Palace and stared at the dazzling purple light, narrowing his eyes. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on Lin Feng. They saw that he did not seem to feel anything and continued to go up, as if he did not care about the bone at all. What on earth is he? While Liang Pan was in doubt, his pupils suddenly contracted. That is. In the void, a crystal-clear, ordinary-looking jade the size of a goose egg suddenly appeared in front of Lin Feng. Liang Pan had seen this jade with his own eyes once and had heard some rumors about it. Golden cicada naturally would not help Lin Feng keep the secret. Although he would not describe it in detail, the mysterious function of Lin Feng's realm-breaking stone had long been known in the vast land of infinite wasteland, and even in the divine land. However, ever since the incident at the Sea of Ocean, Lin Feng's realm-breaking stone had never shown its power again. Others had always lacked direct knowledge of it. In particular, it was already shocking that Golden Cicada could deal with someone in the Dharma-ending realm. It was hard to imagine that he could also deal with this skeleton whose power surpassed the Dharma-ending realm. But today, they finally saw the power of this treasure with their own eyes. In the crystal-clear jade, an invisible wave of Dharma power spread out. There was no light, no aura, no sound. But this Dharma power wrapped around the skeleton that seemed to be the center of the world and the supreme ruler, and suddenly disappeared. Above the ruins of the Great Lane Temple, under the black hole, there was suddenly an empty space. The purple light that filled the whole world, along with Lin Feng and the realm-breaking stone, all disappeared, as if it had never existed. The scene in the void changed. Lin Feng glanced around. This seems to be a deserted medium-class world. This chaotic teleportation is really unreliable. If you were a living thing, such as Tenria Gen, the realm-breaking stone would not be enough to teleport you. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful you are still a dead thing. He looked at the skeleton that was still flashing with a dazzling purple light in the dark void and shook his head. What a pity. I can only remember this place first and try to collect it later. Lin Feng's body seemed to be moving slowly, but in fact he disappeared from the medium-class world at an extremely fast speed. He had returned to the ruins of the Great Lane Temple in the Divine Land. In the void, Golden Rock Great Sage's expression was extremely ugly. Chapter 1133. Above the ruins of Great Thunderclap Monastery, under the black hole, not only Golden Rock Great Sage, Yin Nanlai, and Emperor of Zhou's Liang Pan were also stunned. They couldn't come back to their senses for a moment. Yin Nanlai frowned and stared at Lin Feng, who had disappeared in a flash and reappeared in the Divine Land. Master of Profound Gate, what exactly is he? The power of the skeleton just now was so strong that Yin Nanlai guessed that if he was the one facing it, no matter how profound the paths of Taishu Temple were, he might have been killed in one hit. Looking at the skeleton, Yin Nanlai recalled an impression that was sealed in the depths of his heart, but could never be erased. It was also at this place 4,000 years ago. In the previous war between the two worlds, this was the place where the final battle between the human race and the demon race took place. At that time, the monastery master of Taishu Temple was still Yin Nanlai's master, the Grand Taoist Venerable who was now in the mysterious sea. Even though Yin Nanlai had participated in the battle, he wasn't at the core of the battlefield, and could only assist from the side. The scene at that time was a dazzling purple light that shook the entire boundless world, causing it to distort. An extremely terrifying Yudu beastman stood between heaven and earth. Just by standing there, it was as if the entire boundless world was trembling. The 9 heavens and 10 earths, yin and yang, and the universe were all turned upside down. Just the aura that spread out was enough to make countless top practitioners feel fear and want to bow down. There was no need to specially attack. Just a long howl that spread far and wide unintentionally shattered the primordial spirits of the human cultivators and the undying demon souls of the demon race outside the core battlefield. That violent power was something that every human or demon race who witnessed that scene would never be able to forget for the rest of their lives. And just now, when Yin Nanlai saw the skeleton, he had a similar feeling. Even though it wasn't as terrifying as when the real Yuhuang Heavenly Sea attacked at full power, the aura and power were of the same origin. When it appeared in the ruins of Great Thunderclap Monastery, it was enough to make Yin Nanlai recall the scene in the past. In the Grand Imperial Palace, Emperor of Zhou Liang Pan was no longer able to sit on the dragon throne. He stood up straight, and his eyes flickered with a light that was rarely seen. It showed that this emperor's heart wasn't calm. During the last war between the two worlds more than 4,000 years ago, Liang Pan had not yet been born. Naturally, it was impossible for him to have personally experienced the earth-shattering war. Back then, the Great Zhou Empire was far from what it was now. It was just a small country at the border of the Great Qin Empire, and it submitted to the Great Qin Empire. It felt glorious for its king to marry a noble daughter of the Great Qin Empire. However, this did not prevent Liang Pan from sensing the terrifying power contained within the skeleton. To a strong-willed emperor like Liang Pan, a piece of bone was, after all, an inanimate object. It depended on who used it to determine its value. However, the thing that was reflected on the back of the skeleton, the shocking power of the Yuhuang Celestial Sea in the past, made Liang Pan extremely concerned. It was a power that made his heart palpitate. At the same time, it was a power that he longed to possess. However, what happened next made Liang Pan's eyelids twitch. That horrifying skeleton had actually disappeared right in front of his eyes just like that. An instant ago, that terrifying power had shaken the heavens and the earth, and its might had descended upon the world. But an instant later, it had disappeared without a trace. Looking at the nonchalant expression on Lin Feng's face, Emperor Liang Pan's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He could not speak for a long time. Even if Liang Pan's mind and willpower have always been firm, at this moment, after continuously witnessing the terrifying power of that piece of bone, and the strange disappearance caused by Lin Feng, he also couldn't help but feel a faint feeling of powerlessness and weakness rise in his heart. To Liang Pan, this kind of feeling was more humiliating and frustrating than fear and panic. With just a slight thought, not even an instant, Liang Pan forcibly expelled this feeling from his heart. He once again regained the dignified and orderly state of mind of an emperor. It was just that he could not help but feel complicated. Liang Pan looked at the calm-looking Lin Feng in the void, and let out a rare sigh. Compared to Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan, who were watching from the side, the person in question, the Golden Rock Great Sage, was undoubtedly more shocked. He stared dumbfoundedly at the scene before him. The skeleton, which he regarded as a powerful trump card, had actually disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. If Lin Feng had used the power of the sky-crushing sword, or if Lin Feng had used his own magical powers to forcibly crush the skeleton, or if he had used his great magical powers to collect the skeleton, Golden Rock Great Sage would not have lost his composure even though he was shocked. The powerful power that shook the heavens and the earth suddenly disappeared, as if it had never existed. Golden Rock Great Sage could only feel disbelief. After coming back to his senses, the Golden Rock Great Sage could still vaguely feel the existence of the skeleton and the connection between him and the skeleton, but it was far away in the endless void. The skeleton was no longer in the vast land of the Divine Prefecture. In the blink of an eye, it had been sent by Lin Feng to a medium-class world outside the vast thousand domains. Strange, difficult to guard against, unfathomably powerful. Unexpectedly, Golden Rock Great Sage recalled Golden Cicada's vague comments when he first heard the news of Lin Feng's strange means. Although he could still feel the skeleton in his mind, and although it was the most powerful force he had at hand, Golden Rock Great Sage could only grit his teeth and make a prompt decision. He temporarily put the matter of the skeleton aside, and focused all his attention on the black hole above. As long as he could occupy that place, all the losses and consumption would be worth it. He would have the capital to fight against Lin Feng or find the skeleton. Although Lin Feng had used the realm-breaking stone to quickly deal with the skeleton and return to the black hole in the blink of an eye, this blink of an eye was long enough for Golden Rock Great Sage. Although the shock in his heart inevitably affected Golden Rock Great Sage's state of mind, his body did not stop. He continued to fly at top speed toward the black hole. Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan also accelerated upwards. Without the obstruction of the bone, their path to the black hole became smooth and unobstructed. Liang Pan stood in the main hall of the Grand Imperial Palace and looked at the huge black hole above his head. His expression was solemn, and his eyes were extremely bright. The power of the skeleton and the methods that Lin Feng had displayed made him desire the existence in the black hole even more. Yan Nanlai's gaze was fixed on the Golden Rock Great Sage. The Taishu mark on the back of his left hand shone brightly, becoming more and more profound. Boundless light was already flashing from it. The central heavenly gate of the first heaven of the 9 heavens of the Taishu 9 heavens technique was the foundation of the 9 heavens technique, but it had its own uses. The opening of the light gate was the way out. Taking a step out of it would lead to a bright future. He chased after the golden rock great sage. After Lin Feng used the power of the Breakworld Stone to return to his original position, he did not stop and continued to rise. Rays of 7-colored halos flashed and circled around his body, supporting him as he continued to ascend. His heart was suddenly slightly moved. Lin Feng lowered his head and looked down. He saw that the mountain range where the Great Tempest Temple is at seems to have experienced an unprecedented earthquake. Stretching out horizontally and vertically, like an endless giant mountain range, the entire thing collapsed and shattered. Countless gravel continuously floated into the air, attracted by the black hole. The mountains collapsed, the earth was shattered, and countless things were turned into ashes. Everything seemed like the end of the world. Fortunately, when the war between the two worlds broke out, a large number of ordinary people had been taken in. Even the mountain people who lived deep in the barren mountains were evacuated in large numbers. Otherwise, this catastrophe would have been the end of countless people. However, the former holy land of Buddhism no longer existed. Everything had been destroyed and turned into nothingness. The gigantic Buddha statue with only its feet left, the dilapidated walls and ruins, the huge black beam that was left with only half of it after being burned, and the house that was in ruins. Everything had turned into nothingness and entered the silent nothingness. Lin Feng looked at this scene and frowned slightly. A weird feeling rose in his heart. The world-shaking change in Great Thunderclap Monastery had become the focus of attention of the entire divine land. People like Emperor Qin, Stonefeather, and the rest paid attention to it because there were many strong practitioners gathered here. There were even Yudu treasures that had appeared, causing a huge change in heaven and earth. The black hole covered and swallowed the sky, and a majestic power that attracted people's attention emerged. However, other than these top practitioners of the human race, all the cultivators of Buddhism in the world, from Xianmen Tianzong's monk Dade, Great Zhou Dynasty's monk Dekong, to the ordinary monks, were all looking in the direction of Great Thunderclap Monastery with sorrowful expressions. They were scattered all over the world. Some of them had profound cultivation bases. Some of them had shallow attainments in qi cultivation, some of them lived in seclusion in the deep mountains and old forests, and some of them had already taken off their kasayas and monk robes, returning to the secular world and growing their hair. However, at this moment, all of them had one thing in common, and that was that they were all looking at Great Thunderclap Monastery, the eternal sacred ground of the believers of Buddhism. Even if they left Great Thunderclap Monastery, even if it was already in ruins and the incense had dispersed, even if they weren't in the monastery themselves, most of the monks still cultivated on their own. They had a vision and built a Great Thunderclap Monastery in their hearts. Yet now even the ruins no longer existed. They were destroyed by the hands of others, and to all the cultivators of Buddhism, it was naturally bitter. The ruins weren't important, they were just external objects. However, what was shaken was the belief in their hearts. The age of Dharma ending is coming, and it can't be reversed. Will there really be nirvana and a day when we welcome the age of Dharma ending? There are so many strong practitioners of the heretic path in this world, and the shockwaves from a casual move are continuously destroying the hope of our Buddhism. Where exactly is our way out? After the discussion of karma, most of the cultivators of Buddhism were already in a state of confusion. They hadn't completely understood themselves, and now their hearts were shaken again. In Tianjing city of the Great Zhou Dynasty, monk Dekong, who was like a gilded Buddha statue but was covered in cracks, gritted his teeth. The age of Dharma ending, it's really the age of Dharma ending. First, the Great Thunderclap Monastery was trampled by the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea. Then the Buddhist Extermination Alliance army completely wiped out their incense offerings. After that, the foundation of Dharma ending was shaken by the discussion of karma. Now, the ruins of Great Thunderclap Monastery suffered another calamity, and not even a single tile was left. The calamities caused most of the cultivators of Buddhism to feel despair and bewilderment. Chapter 1134. The long and arduous wait might not shake one's faith, but if one could not see hope, one would suffer setbacks again and again, and the situation would worsen day by day. It was as if one was waiting for death and struggling on one's deathbed. However, it would inevitably erode one's confidence and will. Those with strong willpower would view the trials and tribulations as a form of training and training for themselves. But when this path was not only overgrown with thorns, but also bordering a cliff, the path ahead seemed to be completely broken. When there was no way out, those with a strong will would also feel despair and bewilderment. Generally speaking, the cultivation of Buddhist disciples would not be too weak. They would be able to see one's heart, distinguish one's true self, and not be easily shaken. But on the other hand, once such people had doubts, it would be even more difficult to eliminate. At the same time, if they strayed from the path, they would often be more stubborn and extreme. For most Buddhist cultivators, this was the most confused and perplexed time in their lives. In the Kunlun Mountains, Monk Dade put his palms together and chanted silently with a calm expression. He looked in the direction of the Great Lane Temple with a compassionate expression, but his state of mind was still stable. There was a pure land above his head, and it was as if he could find happiness in it. He had never felt or suffered. In the pure land, a mysterious and pure radiance flickered. It seemed small and almost indiscernible, but it caused the entire Pure Land to shine in all directions, causing the Kunlun mountain range to appear auspicious and joyful. Boundless radiance illuminated the world. At the original location of the Great Lane Temple, the mountains on the ground had been completely destroyed. The black hole in the sky was still expanding, and the broken stones and soil on the ground were swept up into the sky and swallowed by the black hole. Lin Feng flew up and entered the black hole. Golden Rock Great Sage, Liang Pan, Yen Nanlai, and the others also entered. After entering the black hole, Lin Feng's vision was completely chaotic, and he could not see anything. The seven-colored light circled around his body and gradually expanded, stirring the void. Gradually, a large amount of purple light appeared in front of him. This purple light was like an ocean, vast and endless, but it did not come into contact with Lin Feng's body. Although Lin Feng was surrounded by the purple light, the two of them seemed to be in two different worlds. Outside the black hole, Lin Feng and the others could feel the purple light coming from it. Although it was dim and not as bright as the bone, it was even more shocking and majestic. However, at this moment, after entering the black hole, this ocean-like purple light did not reveal any special aura. It was not as ferocious and overbearing as ordinary demonic energy, but it was not ethereal either. It was like the most ordinary and primitive spiritual energy. However, this spiritual energy was pure and dense. For a moment, Lin Feng felt as if he had returned to his spiritual sea. However, the purple ocean was left behind after the Yuhuang Heavenly Ocean died, so it wasn't as boundless as the spiritual ocean. But even so, the wealth here was so abundant that even experts like Lin Feng, Yen Nanlai, Liang Pan, and the Golden Rock Great Sage were taken aback. Strange, why does the spiritual energy and aura here feel strong on the outside but weak on the inside? But Lin Feng did not feel happy because of this. Instead, he felt that something was wrong. Lin Feng carefully analyzed and felt that this purple sea of light did not seem to be as powerful as it appeared on the surface. This discovery surprised Lin Feng. After all, before this place had always been hidden in the void. Today should be the first time the Golden Rock Great Sage had opened it. If there was consumption, then where did it come from? There is no demonic energy fluctuation, no real spirit awakening, and no demonic soul. Yuhuang Heavenly Ocean is indeed dead. Could it be that he is here to reincarnate? Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. If it's not Yuhuang Heavenly Ocean, then who could it be? Lin Feng shuttled through the purple ocean as he pondered. Although this place severely blocked the perception of his divine sense, Lin Feng still accurately locked onto the position of the Golden Rock Great Sage. At this moment, the Golden Rock Great Sage's mood could not be said to be good. His eyes were filled with bewilderment. After carefully sensing it, he clearly discovered that the purple ocean in the black hole was not as beautiful as he had imagined. Someone actually beat me to it. Who could it be? Yen Nanlai stood in the purple ocean, his eyes flashing non-stop. Could it be the hidden Yudu race? But it doesn't feel like it. I can't sense any demonic energy or demonic spirit consciousness. Emperor Liangpan of Zhou stood in the Grand Imperial Palace, not saying a word. The magic power of the Grand Imperial Palace spread out, trying to come into contact with the purple light. He wanted to break through the barrier of the space and collect the purple light. In the black hole, in the purple ocean, the space was also chaotic. Yan Nanlai quickly discovered that the Golden Rock Great Sage was not far away from him. Light flashed around Yan Nanlai's body, and the Great Void inscription on the back of his left hand seemed to come to life. Rays of light spread out, like ribbons of light dancing in the void. In an instant, white clouds lingered, and golden light flashed. Between the white clouds and the golden light, there seemed to be an uncountable number of figures singing together. Yan Nanlai's left palm seemed to be holding up a mystical world with celestial music lingering in the air. It was like a holy celestial realm, a supreme celestial kingdom. It made people yearn for it. It was the 8th tier of the Great Void Nine Heavens secret. Shen Tian has celestial realm. This celestial realm swept up a majestic force, splitting the purple ocean, and pressing towards the Golden Rock Great Sage. The Golden Rock Great Sage saw this and snorted, but he didn't dare to be slow. He flapped his wings, and as they opened and closed, they covered the sky and the sun. It was like a storm of meteors, and a golden rain of light instantly filled Yan Nanlai's vision. As the light flashed, the huge body of the Golden Rock Great Sage became larger and larger. The terrifying power of qi and blood had already shown itself. He had directly revealed his true form. The majestic light collided. Yan Nanlai thought to himself, although this demon's tribulation speed isn't as fast as Tian Mei's, it's still very fast. Previously, I received news that he had only experienced 1 or 2 tribulations at the Yangtze. Back then, when the Celestial Sect Master went to the Infinite Wasteland and fought with Tian Long Kun and Golden Cicada was severely injured by the Thousand Laws Heart Ape. This demon and the Great Sage chased after Golden Cicada. It seems that they also benefited a lot, making it convenient for him to go through the tribulation and get through the period of weakness after the tribulation. As he thought about this, Yan Nanlai didn't slow down at all. The speed of the Golden-Winged Rock Race could be said to be the fastest among demons of the same realm, especially after the Golden Rock Great Sage revealed his true form. His speed was even more shocking. Even with Yan Nanlai's eyesight, he could only see a flash of golden light. This kind of speed had already surpassed the limits of space to a certain extent, causing the concept of distance to be lost in space. Among the demon race, the Golden-Winged Rock used the principle of unbeatable speed to the extreme. When fighting with humans, he had the upper hand. However, the escape techniques passed down in the Taishu Temple were also extraordinary. Yan Nanlai used the Heaven Ascension technique and the Clear Sky Circulation technique together, and used them flexibly to fight with the Golden Rock Great Sage. The mysterious and indescribable Great Void light around him also spread out once again. It seemed inconspicuous, but it was what the Golden Rock Great Sage feared the most. As long as the Great Void light touched him, the extreme speed of the Golden Rock Great Sage, which surpassed the limits of space, would immediately slow down. His figure would become sluggish. In terms of magical powers, demon power, and physical combat, the Golden-Winged Rock race was not weak. In fact, they were even more ferocious than most of the demon race. However, if they lost their extreme speed, the threat of their other techniques would naturally decrease. How could the Golden Rock Great Sage give up his strongest technique? Every time the Great Void light touched him, and he was about to be sucked in by the mysterious light, the golden feathers on the Golden Rock Great Sage's body would suddenly burst out with a purple light. As the purple light flashed, it instantly separated Yan Nanlai's Great Void light, preventing it from truly engulfing the Golden Rock Great Sage. However, Yan Nanlai had the protection of the Great Void light. If the Golden Rock Great Sage wanted to attack him directly, it would be extremely difficult. A demonic glow flashed in the Golden Rock Great Sage's cold eyes. A layer of purple light gradually appeared on his claws. In between the purple light, millions and millions of mysterious runes appeared and covered his claws. They gave off a terrifying power that could shake one's soul. When he waved his claws, It was as if he could tear apart the 9 heavens and 10 earths. At this moment, the sea of purple light suddenly split apart. As the 7-colored light shone, Lin Feng appeared. Raising his head to look at the Golden Rock Great Sage who was fighting with Yan Nanlai, Lin Feng shook his head. Refining the Yuhuang Heavenly Seas Yu Ming Hua has allowed your battle prowess to surpass the Golden Rock Great Sage by a lot. However, without that bone, you're nothing more than this. As he said this, Lin Feng didn't hold back. He spread his palm and used his magic power to form the Yin and Yang life and death formation, displaying the changes of the boundless Yin and Yang. Boundless light transformed into a palm that was even larger than the Golden Rock Great Sage's true form. It grabbed at the Golden Rock Great Sage. The Golden Rock Great Sage flapped his wings and unleashed his speed, wanting to escape. But on Lin Feng's sky-covering hand, rings of 7-colored light flickered. He activated the mysterious gate's heavenly escape technique. Between the 5 fingers of the giant hand, there were all sorts of profound changes, and he actually vaguely trapped the Golden Rock Great Sage. No matter how fast the Golden Rock Great Sage was, he couldn't fly out of the area covered by Lin Feng's palm. However, the speed of the Golden Rock race was indeed strong. Even though it was affected by Lin Feng's mysterious gate heaven escape technique, it was still unpredictable. It was like a golden light flashing continuously in the void, making it hard for people to pinpoint its exact location. However, in the center of the huge palm manifested by Lin Feng's Yin and Yang life and death technique, a beam of chaotic light that was difficult to understand immediately descended. Wherever the light passed, time seemed to have stopped. Everything turned dull and monotonous. Covered by the light from the horizon once more, the figure of the Golden Rock Great Sage instantly became clear. Seeing Lin Feng's palm pressing down on him with the power to trample the sky, the Golden Rock Great Sage let out a shrill cry and spread his wings. He stretched out his claws and grabbed at the void forcefully before tearing it apart. The entire void shattered, and a huge crack appeared. The boundary was forcefully torn apart, and the space was annihilated into nothingness. But just as his body froze, Lin Feng put his palms together. The magic power of the Yin and Yang return to origin realm had already enveloped him. The light in the eyes of the Golden Rock Great Sage became more and more dazzling. His golden feathers were instantly plated with a layer of purple light, turning his whole body purple. At the same time, the purple sea of light in which everyone was gradually losing its calm and became violent. Chapter 1135. At this moment, Golden Rock Sage's entire body turned purple. The sense of power grew stronger and more violent. Under the purple light, an extremely powerful force burst out in an instant. Whether it was the power of the demon soul, or the qi and blood of the body, at this moment, it was almost comparable to that of the great demons of the Age of Enlightenment. Seeing this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. What a strong explosive force. The Golden Winged Rock lives up to its reputation. Although the foundation of the Great Rock Wind Riding Technique, and the King Rock Fist of the Tempest Temple in the past is in you, it is still not as perfect as the real Golden Winged Rock. In this instant of explosive force, it is slightly inferior. He was simply praising, but at this moment, Golden Rock Sage's expression changed abruptly. Under the black hole, the ruined Tempest Temple was not a good place for the Golden Winged Rock clan. In ancient times, Ruhuang abdicated and became a Buddha, establishing the orthodoxy of the Tempest Temple. Later, he captured the leader of the Golden Winged Rock clan alive. At that time, Golden Rock Sage submitted to Buddha and became a Buddhist protector, also known as the Wisdom King Rock. The Great Rock Wind Riding Technique and King Rock Fist of the Great Laying Temple were inherited from the Great Rock Wisdom King. In addition to the Wisdom King Rock, many other Golden Winged Rocks were also subdued by the Tempest Temple. Later, some Golden Winged Rocks left the Tempest Temple. The ancestor of the Thunder Abyss Golden Rock was one of them. For him, the Tempest Temple was undoubtedly a somewhat embarrassing place. Especially just now, it was precisely because of him that the old Buddhist site was completely destroyed. Golden Rock Sage's eyes flashed like lightning, and a violent force burst out in an instant, trying to break free from Lin Feng's Yin and Yang naturalization realm. Lin Feng glanced at him, and his eyes showed a hint of understanding. He also thought of the entanglement between the Golden-Winged Rock Clan and the Tempest Temple, and could not help but laugh and shake his head. But anyway, the Golden-Winged Rock Clan's innate magical power is indeed impressive. Among the tribulation-passing great demons that Lin Feng had fought before, Zhu Yan the Great Saint, Blue Sky Dragon King, and White Tiger the Great Saint were the most powerful. Among them, White Tiger the Great Saint was slightly better in terms of attack power. However, there was still a gap between them and greater demons in the Last Days realm, especially when it came to greater demons that were peerlessly ferocious in actual combat. The gap was even greater. Lin Feng's true body had unleashed the yin and yang return to origin wondrous realm, and the White Tiger Great Sage had transformed into his true form. However, the power unleashed by the Golden Rock Great Sage was stronger than that of the White Tiger Great Sage. The dark splendor of Yudu surrounding him seemed to have solidified. Countless purple light markings emerged from his body, and were engraved in the void. They exploded together, shaking heaven and earth. However, Lin Feng's own cultivation level was no longer the same as when he was at the initial void return stage, and heading to Tianhuang mainland. The powerful yin and yang return to origin wondrous realm seemed to be closing heaven and earth, and returning them to one. The black hole void that everyone was in and the boundaries seemed to be shaking and twisting slightly, affected. At the same time, Lin Feng opened his left palm. Under the change of the incantation, the stars changed their paths and the starry sky trembled. The powerful force of the battle of heaven and earth also acted on the Golden Rock Great Sage. At this moment, the Golden Rock Great Sage felt that he had great power, but he couldn't use it. He wanted to explode, but there seemed to be no opponent in front of him. He had strength but nowhere to use it. However, what made him even more depressed was that Lin Feng's yin and yang return to origin wondrous realm was clearly sending waves of magic power to weaken his divine arts and demon power. However, these magic power seemed to have appeared out of thin air. He couldn't find the source of it, so he could only be beaten for nothing. After Lin Feng fixed the Golden Rock Great Sage's figure in place, the index and middle fingers of his right hand stood side by side like a sword. They were chaotic and blurry, and the peerlessly fierce heaven-punishing sword chi appeared again, slashing toward the Golden Rock Great Sage. The purple light on the Golden Rock Great Sage's body shone continuously. The sea of purple light that everyone was in started to become restless and more violent. Lin Feng and Yin Nanlai frowned at the same time. Although it has already become pure and primitive vital qi, it is still formed from the essence qi of the remains of Yuhuang's celestial sea. After a long time, it has been affected by the Yudu netherflower of the same origin, and it is gradually showing signs of returning to its original state. Other than the Yudu netherflower of the Yudu netherflower, I'm afraid the magic power of my yin and yang return to origin wondrous realm is also affected. Lin Feng thought to himself and shook his head. The true spirit divine markings in his void return body that were already flashing became more and more dazzling, and a layer of purple light gradually appeared on them. If they were to really compare their mastery of the heavenly Tao demon scriptures, he was even deeper than the Golden Rock Great Sage. The purple qi on Lin Feng's body churned and spread out in all directions. Under his suppression, the sea of purple light that was becoming more and more restless gradually regained its calmness. However, at this moment, another force rose up in the sea of purple light, causing it to slide further into chaos. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. This feeling, is it also the power of the Yudu netherflower, the enchantress? As expected, when I entered the black hole just now, I felt that the flow of time here is different from that of the boundless worlds. It is sometimes fast and sometimes slow, and it is extremely chaotic. However, in general, it is slightly faster than the boundless worlds. No wonder there were people rushing in not long after we entered the black hole. In the chaotic space in the sea of purple light, a blurry figure stood there silently. One could barely make out that it was a person from the outside. His facial features were indistinguishable, and only a pair of extremely bright eyes could move one's soul. It was none other than the enchantress. At this moment, a demonic purple light flashed in his eyes, and runes filled the sky, filling the void. These runes seemed to be engraved in space. As the runes fused with the void, the heavenly enchantress saint and the purple sea of light which seemed to be in two different worlds, gradually began to come into contact. The boundary between the two worlds became blurry and thin, and the two worlds that had originally overlapped but each doing their own thing began to merge into one. The pure, primordial essence in the sea of purple light also started to become turbid. It wasn't filthy, but the essence had lost its pre-celestial true meaning of primordial. Under the guidance of the enchantress's Yudu Netherflower, it started to show the aura of the Yuhuang heavenly sea again. However, the enchantress naturally had no intention of doing so. Instead, he took the chance to absorb the essence in large amounts. Even though the essence had lost its pre-celestial true meaning of primordial, the enchantress who had the Yudu Netherflower could still refine and absorb it afterward without any inconvenience. In the void on the other side, Emperor Liangpan stood in the great hall of the Grand Imperial Palace. The spells on his hands changed, and purple markings that looked like a net appeared on the ground of the great hall. Under the guidance of these markings, the large amounts of essence that could already come into contact with were also absorbed by the Grand Imperial Palace and Liangpan himself. The power of the Grand Imperial Palace was raised to the extreme at this moment. Light that filled the sky shrouded the entire palace, and in the light, there were the shadows of billions of people that bowed to the palace. The will of obedience gathered together and blessed the palace. Above the people, the sages and scholars, as well as the numerous officials, also bowed to the palace, displaying the logic of heaven and earth and the boundless laws. Between the palace halls, numerous fairy maidservants transformed into illusions of light and shadow as they walked around. They carried fine nectar as though they were welcoming a prosperous era. In the sky, figures that could summon the wind and summon the rain descended. Under the guidance of the maidservants, it was as though 10,000 immortals had come to pay their respects to the imperial palace. However, the most eye-catching thing was that the entire sky above the imperial palace had condensed into a figure of light that was boundlessly domineering. It was as though he was the supreme ruler of heaven and earth, ruling over the divine prefecture, and ruling over the world. As a large amount of spiritual essence surged into the palace, the figure became more and more distinct, and its might became more and more powerful. It made people involuntarily want to submit to it. As he came into contact with the sea of purple light, the Golden Rock Great Sage's spirit was roused. The domineering purple light around his body surged, faintly resonating with the sea of purple light. At the same time, a soft cry rang out beside Lin Feng's ears. A peacock with a majestic and proud temperament, entirely dark blue, dragging a gorgeous tail, and glowing with five-colored light appeared from the sea of purple light. It was the great sage peafowl. Although he was a little slower than the enchantress, this great demon had also barged into the divine land and headed straight for the black hole above the ruins of the great Thunderclap Temple. He was also a great demon who was undergoing tribulation. Although he had not completely completed his tribulation, his magical powers and demonic power were extremely powerful. He was far beyond what ordinary Dao integration cultivators could withstand. The speed of the great sage peafowl's tribulation transcendence had also exceeded expectations. Without a doubt, the flesh and blood that the Golden Rock Great Sage had obtained from Golden Cicada had been shared with him to help him speed up his tribulation transcendence and recovery. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly, a faint smile on his face. Does this count as hard work for one person and a blessing for everyone? But I wonder how Golden Cicada feels about this? However, at this moment, most of Lin Feng's attention was not on him and the Golden Rock Great Sage. As the power of boundaries gradually blurred, and the two overlapping worlds completely merged into one, Lin Feng had a better grasp of the direction of the spiritual essence in the sea of purple light. The doubts in his heart had been confirmed. Right now, Lin Feng could feel that there was indeed a special existence in the sea of purple light that was constantly attracting the spiritual essence to gather. Someone had really beaten him to it. However, as he carefully sensed the aura of the artistic conception, Lin Feng's expression involuntarily became strange. This was because he was no stranger to the artistic conception of this technique. Lin Feng stretched out his palm and spread open his fingers. He plunged them into the sea of purple light and began to stir. As he stirred, the purple mist flickered incessantly, and then gradually dispersed. the enchantress, Yin Nanlai Liang Pan, and even the great sage Pifao, who had just arrived, all sensed something and looked toward the center of the sea of light. Even the Golden Rock great sage, who was temporarily trapped by Lin Feng, could not help but look over. In the center of the dispersing purple light, there were actually countless grains of sand and stones dancing in the air. The soil and stones that had been sucked in by the black hole when the ruins of the Great Thunderclap Monastery had been destroyed had all gathered here, gradually condensing into an incomparably huge building that looked like a tall tower. At the top of the building, there were 3 seats standing side by side. There was a projection in the center and the left seat, but the right seat was empty. Chapter 1136. Previously, when the black hole was formed, it shattered the vast mountain range where the ruins of the Great Thunderclap Monastery was located. Countless rocks and soil were destroyed, but there were also countless rocks and soil that were attracted by the black hole and flew into the sky. In the end, they were swallowed by the black hole and disappeared without a trace. Before Lin Feng entered the black hole, he had a vague feeling in his heart, but it was unclear. He only felt that there seemed to be a mysterious power that was guiding the destroyed Great Thunderclap Monastery. However, the black hole had swallowed the heavens and the earth, concealing this layer of change, making it difficult for Lin Feng to distinguish it. Now that he saw this sky-reaching pagoda, it confirmed his previous feeling. Within the purple light, the pagoda was square in shape. Each side was 48,000 zhang wide, and the height was 48,000 zhang. It had a total of 7 levels. Although it was condensed from crushed rocks and looked crude, it gave off a mysterious feeling that one could not underestimate it. Although the pagoda was crude, Lin Feng and the others could naturally recognize that it was a Buddhist pagoda. The 7-story pagoda stood in the center of the purple light ocean, continuously absorbing the pure and primitive essence energy from the purple light ocean. The best place to hide a leaf is a forest. Lin Feng looked at the pagoda. This black hole has the power to swallow the heavens and the earth, but it has concealed this hidden thing. After destroying the Tempest Temple, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou obtained a large number of Buddhist treasures and Buddhist scriptures. Even though their daos were not of the same origin, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou's understanding of Buddhist orthodoxy was still top-notch in the current world. Looking at this scene, his heart sank slightly. The momentum has been formed. The ritual has been completed. Destroying the pagoda will not help. At this moment, the Grand Imperial Palace was trembling slightly, and there was a faint Buddhist glow. In the past, Liang Pan had sacrificed a large number of relics from the Great Thunderclap Monastery to repair the Grand Imperial Palace. At this moment it was also triggered, and there was some reaction. Yin Nanlai's expression was slightly complicated. The Taishu Temple also had some understanding of Buddhist orthodoxy. Looking at the scene before him, waves arose in his eyes that could not be calmed for a long time. The pagoda had basically formed, but there were still broken rocks and sand that were sucked in by the black hole. The broken rocks and sand were pulled by the pagoda towards it. New gravel gathered on the Buddha, yet it didn't cause its size to change, and it only caused the Buddha's pagoda to become even more condensed and heavy. Lin Feng and the others did not pay much attention to a pagoda made of earth and stone. However, a melodious and mighty Sanskrit chanting suddenly came from the pagoda, shaking the entire purple sea and spreading to the vast world outside the black hole in the divine land. Accompanied by the Buddhist voice that resounded throughout the world, a vast and boundless light lit up above the pagoda, illuminating the world in all directions. There was no day or night, only a stretch of bright light. The suction force of the black hole was so strong that other than tangible matter, formless sound and light would also be sucked in. But now, it was unable to block out the Sanskrit voice and Buddhist light. The Buddhist light of Sanskrit became hotter and hotter as it penetrated through the black hole, illuminating the shattered world below. It was as if the end of the Dharma had passed, and a new life had been born after the calamity. At this moment, the Buddhist monks that were originally wailing and crying all felt something in their hearts. They felt as if the clouds in their hearts were dispelled and they saw the sun. The bewilderment and despair gradually faded, and their minds calmed down once again. The monks with high cultivation looked in the direction of the Great Lane Temple. They could faintly see the flickering Buddhist light in the sky, and faintly hear the Sanskrit chanting in their ears. The monks with low cultivation were unable to detect the Buddhist light and chanting with their eyes, ears, and divine sense, but they only felt that their Zen heart had become clear. It was as if the Sanskrit chanting resounded in their hearts and the Buddhist light lit up. At this moment, all the Buddhist cultivators revealed a peaceful and auspicious expression. They disregarded the situation around them and sat down cross-legged with their palms pressed together and chanted the Heart Sutra. In the vast divine land and the secular world, all the people who believed in Buddhism felt their hearts palpitate faintly at this moment. They couldn't help but start silently chanting the Heart Sutra and offering incense. Bit by bit, drop by drop, the amount was vast like the ocean. It was as if the boundless power of incense and faith had faintly resonated with the Sanskrit chanting of the Buddhist cultivators, and faintly resonated with the Skypian pagoda in the black hole. The mysterious power that was neither spiritual energy nor spiritual energy was endlessly added to the pagoda without any obstruction. The Buddhist light of the pagoda suddenly spread wider and wider, illuminating the world. The Sanskrit chanting in the hearts of the Buddhist cultivators and the secular believers also became more and more magnificent. What made Lin Feng and the others more concerned was that a large number of light spots gradually appeared on the giant pagoda. There were 48,000 light spots, and each light spot contained a wonderful Buddhist power. They looked like relics. Lin Feng's gaze fell on the top of the pagoda, where there were 3 seats. There was a ball of light in the center and on the left, while the seat on the right was empty. Seeing the ball of light clearly, Lin Feng's pupils suddenly contracted slightly. It was 2 statues of pure gold, 6 feet tall, and they were wrapped in the ball of light. Although countless years had passed, and even the Big Lane Temple itself had been destroyed, ordinary Buddhist scriptures and old portraits were widely circulated. Lin Feng had seen them before, so he naturally recognized the faces of the 2 statues. In the past, after Ru Huang abdicated, he became a Buddha at the old site of the Big Lane Temple, establishing a branch of Buddhism. He had 10 most outstanding disciples under him, and all of them proved their ethereal natures and revealed their true selves. They were hailed as the 10 great disciples of Buddha by later generations. After that, the 10 of them passed away one after another, and each of them left behind a golden avatar to guard the mountain gate of the Big Lane Temple, protecting the orthodoxy of the Great Lane Temple from being destroyed. The statues that appeared in front of everyone now were naturally not the 10 great disciples themselves, but the golden avatars they left behind. In the previous war between the 2 worlds, the Big Lane Temple was breached by the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea, and the golden avatars of the 10 great disciples scattered. After a long period of searching, some of them were found, but there was still no news of some of them. Everyone had never thought that they would actually see the golden avatars in this black hole. One of them was Fu Laona, who was known as the #1 preaching among the 10 great disciples because he was good at explaining the principles of Buddhism. The other one was Shariputra, who was known as the #1 wisdom among the 10 great disciples because he abided by the precepts and learned a lot. Lin Feng thought. Not long after the dissipation, when the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea fell and turned into a black hole, it was drawn back and sealed here together with the essence left behind by the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea. I'm afraid this ritual has been prepared since a long time ago. It has been operating since the moment the black hole appeared, extracting a large amount of essence energy from the purple sea. Then it waited for this moment to come and complete the final step. If that's the case, there should be a 3rd golden avatar here. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and he looked at the void above the pagoda, but there was nothing there. Seeing this, Lin Feng sighed softly, knowing that his guess was probably correct. The Golden Rock Great Sage looked at the huge sky pagoda in front of him with a gloomy expression. Suddenly, without hesitation, he pushed his strength to the limit and brazenly burst out. The purple sea was strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. Most of its essence had already been absorbed by the 7-story pagoda. His trip had been a complete failure, and he had even assisted the other party in completing the last step of the ritual. If he continued to stay, he would gain nothing, and he would also die here. Although the Golden Rock Great Sage was extremely disappointed at this moment, he had no other thoughts, and only wanted to escape as soon as possible. Huajin, go quickly. After calling out to the peafowl great sage, the golden rock great sage opened his mouth, and suddenly a strange door appeared. The door opened and light and shadow flashed inside, shining brightly. It was the gate of the Sea of Stars controlled by the golden rock great sage. Without saying a word, the golden rock great sage shot out light from his eyes and shone on the gate of the Sea of Stars. The huge door suddenly shook violently, and for a moment a large amount of starlight gushed out, but it did not attack Lin Feng, but wrapped around the gate of the Sea of Stars. In the next moment, his gate of the Sea of Stars gradually turned into a shadow. During this process, an extremely violent force burst out, combining with the golden rock great sage's own strength, and forcibly broke free from Lin Feng's yin and yang, returning to origin realm. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. Oh, you actually took the initiative to drop your gate of the Sea of Stars? Unlike the White Tiger Great Sage who had just obtained the gate of the Sea of Stars, and could not control it freely, the Golden Rock Great Sage had obtained the gate of the Sea of Stars for many years. He had thoroughly studied it, and had come up with many wonderful uses. But he was well aware that there was only one way to use it in this situation. That was to drop the gate of the Sea of Stars, and use this moment of powerful explosive force to break out of the encirclement. This time, he had returned empty-handed, lost the gate of the Sea of Stars, and even temporarily lost the piece of skeleton. This time, the Golden Rock Great Sage had suffered a great loss, and it could no longer be described as a great loss of vitality. Even if he managed to escape, he might not be able to recover from this setback. But as long as he could escape, there would be a chance to make a comeback. No matter how slim the hope was, the Golden Rock Great Sage's will was firm, and he did not lack the courage to fight to the death. He would not give up any possible hope, and he did not lack sufficient determination. Since there was no other way out of this place, he would seek to escape as soon as possible, leave the black hole, and try to find the lost piece of skeleton first. Then he would make his next plan, even if he had to lie dormant and endure for a short period of time, waiting patiently to make a comeback in the future. Lin Feng opened his palm, one hand clasping the light of the gate of the Sea of Stars, and the other hand once again grabbed the Golden Rock Great Sage. But at this moment, a mass of primordial chaotic chi suddenly appeared in front of him, sweeping toward the gate of the Sea of Stars left by the Golden Rock Great Sage. It was the Enchantress. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows, and the purple chi vibrated, colliding with the Enchantress. The chaotic chi dissipated, revealing a slender palm that was as white as jade. This palm turned in the void, but did not continue to grab the gate of the Sea of Stars. Instead, it suddenly blocked in front of Lin Feng's other hand, which was grabbing the Golden Rock Great Sage, and stopped Lin Feng for a moment. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he looked into the eyes of the Enchantress, which were as bright as the stars. On the other side, Yin Nanlai also intercepted the Golden Rock Great Sage, but the Golden Rock Great Sage had no intention of fighting with him, and only wanted to escape. Under such circumstances, Yin Nanlai could not stop him. And at this moment, the towering pagoda also changed. The golden bodies of Fu Lu and Shariputra, under the blessing of the Buddha's light, changed their appearance. Chapter 1137. On the top of the Babel Pagoda, the two golden bodies of Fu Luna and Sariputta were sitting upright. Although they were rich in magical power, they were not living creatures after all. However, under the radiance of Buddha, the facial expressions of the two golden bodies became gentle, as if they were alive. Two deep chants of Buddha were heard, and the two golden bodies opened their eyes at the same time. From the angle where Lin Feng and the others were facing, Fu Luna, who was on the left, put his palms together and said slowly, "Buddha is merciful. Go to billions of worlds, save all living beings, and save all karmic retribution." Sariputta, who was in the middle, also put his palms together and said slowly, "Buddha is merciful. Now that the last Dharma has been completed, I am born again to save the world." Both of them had a gentle and calm smile on their faces. Fu Luna whispered, "Namo Amitabha Buddha." Sariputta whispered, "Namo Amitabha Buddha." Under the shroud of Buddha's radiance, the golden bodies changed completely, no longer looking the same. Fu Luna's golden body turned into an ancient Buddha with a yellow face. There was no expression on his face, no sadness, no joy, no hatred, no anger. His eyes were closed and he did not speak a word, as if he was dead. The dead, also known as nirvana, referred to coolness and silence, the absence of annoyance and the eternal silence of all suffering. It contained the concepts of neither birth nor death, neither defilement nor purity, neither increase nor decrease, separation from one's differences, birth and death, and permanence. In the Dharma, there was no worry, the realm of detachment from life and death. There was no gain, no attachment, no change, and it was complete. The ancient Buddha's radiance sat on the Babel pagoda, as if it was in a state where all the laws in the world had been destroyed, leaving only one complete and silent law. It was extremely mysterious. Although it was just a light, Lin Feng, Yin Nanlai, Liang Pan, and the others recognized it immediately. It was the ancient Buddha who became a Buddha in the ancient times, transforming his past into the Amitabha Buddha. He was also the first Buddha in the history of the great Tianyuan world. It's really like this. Even with Lin Feng's current state of mind, he was still slightly shaken. Looking towards the golden body of Shariputra in the center, sure enough, he saw that the golden body had already transformed into a giant Buddha. This Buddha's silhouette was dignified, sacred, and grand. There seemed to be 5 lumps of light above its head, as though there were 5 worlds in the center. There was that Pure Land in the center. Its name was after all the Pure Land, not inferior to anything else. It was supreme, unimaginably beautiful, indescribable. It purified one of the 5 skandhas, perfected the Dharma realm's nature and intelligence, transforming ignorance and worries. It meant that one's nature was pure. There was the Pure Land in the north, the Pure Land of karma. It was as if everything that one wanted to do could be achieved easily. All the elements were perfected, and one could purify one of the 5 skandhas, achieving the wisdom of doing things and turning away jealousy and worries. This meant that one could achieve everything. There was the Pure Land in the west, the Pure Land of bliss. It was because there was no suffering and no suffering. Those who lived there would be relieved of the pain of reincarnation, ascended to the Pure Land, purified one of the 5 skandhas, achieving the wisdom of non-discrimination, transforming greed and worries. This meant that one could be at peace. There was the Pure Land in the south, the Pure Land of virtue. It was endowed with glory because it possessed all the qualities and abilities to achieve enlightenment. It purified one of the 5 skandhas, achieving the wisdom of receiving, achieving the wisdom of equality, transforming one of the 5 skandhas, achieving the wisdom of doing things and worries. There was the Pure Land in the east, the Pure Land of joy. Those who lived there would not regress, nor would they mutate. They purified one of the 5 skandhas, achieving the wisdom of the omniscient mirror, transforming anger and worries. This meant that one's nature would not change. Above these 5 Pure Lands, there were lights and shadows flickering. Each Pure Land corresponded to a figure, but they were not the commonly seen 5 Buddhas. Instead, in the 5 balls of flames, the figures of the 5 Wisdom Kings, the Immovable Wisdom King, the Great Wisdom King, the Junchali Wisdom King, the Trailokaya Vijaya Wisdom King, and the Vajrayaksha Wisdom King appeared. This Buddha was the most familiar image of Gautama Buddha in the long history of Buddhism. He was the master of Buddhism, the founder of the Tempest Temple, the present Buddha, Gautama Buddha. When the lights and shadows of these 2 Buddhas appeared, the towering pagoda instantly became even more dazzling. The light kept expanding, causing the surroundings of the towering pagoda to form a completely independent world. Around the towering pagoda, countless lights and shadows appeared, surrounding the 7-floored pagoda and sitting upright. Those lights and shadows could be seen as Zen masters, bhikkhus, upayi, upasai, holy monks, arhats, jedis, and bodhisattvas. They were all chanting Buddhist scriptures and chanting the name of Buddha. This scene caused Yin Nanlai's gaze to freeze. The central world of Saha. Ever since the war between the 2 worlds 4,600 years ago, the central world of Saha had never appeared in the Divine Land. Although Lin Feng, Liang Pan, and the rest had never seen this world with their own eyes, they had heard of it for a long time. Now that they were watching it, they were shocked. Looking at the towering 7-floored pagoda in the central world of Saha and the 2 Buddhas' lights and shadows on top of the pagoda, Lin Feng's pupils shrank slightly. It's not that the golden bodies of Furuna and Shariputa transformed into themselves and revived. Instead, the golden bodies were triggered by the Buddhist power and gained some spirituality. However, they immediately threw themselves into this ritual and became a part of it, manifesting the Dharmakaya of the past Amitabha Buddha and the present Buddha Gautama Buddha. He took a deep breath, and his gaze fell on the last empty spot. Since the past Amitabha Buddha and the present Buddha Gautama Buddha have already appeared, this spot is naturally left for the future radiant glazed medicine Buddha. I see. Lin Feng looked around at the sea of purple light that was gradually dispersing. Finally, his gaze fell on the Babel Pagoda again. He stared at the Babel Pagoda and suddenly laughed. Good technique, good calculation. What a great 3 lives karma curse. Even though it can't really see through all the changes in the future and transcend beyond the mortal world, it's still a good technique. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. In the long river of history, there have been countless geniuses. Even though most of them have been drowned by the passage of time, there are still a few who are more extraordinary. They are the best of the best and have almighty techniques. They are amazing and should not be underestimated. Before this, there was the rebirth of the king of the underworld. He returned to the mortal world from the world of death. After that, there was the Buddha Gautama Buddha, who entered the Dead Sea. However, he was still able to return to the Buddhist world in the Dharma ending era, as the future Lord Buddha. Interesting. It was different from the resurrection of the king of the underworld. No one knew whether the Buddha was dead or alive when he entered the Dead Sea. This wasn't a resurrection, nor was it the Buddha returning to the mortal world from the Dead Sea. Instead, the Buddha used his own profound technique as the foundation, relying on the various conditions of the current environment to give birth to a Buddha in his own future. Yin Nanlai Liangpan, the enchantress, great sage Pifao, and the others also reacted. For a moment, they were speechless as they stared at the central Saha world. The eyes of the 2 great demons, the enchantress and great sage Pifao, shone brightly. Such a thing actually happened. This is really unexpected. The Yuhuang Heavenly Sea severed the fate of the Great Thunderclap Monastery. In the end, the essence chi left behind by the Great Thunderclap Monastery was used by Taoist Rulai, establishing the foundation for the revival of the Buddhist world. This was a great coincidence. Who would have thought that he would succeed? The connection between this is really indescribable. Yin Nanlai and Emperor Liangpan looked at the 2 Buddha silhouettes on the sky-reaching pagoda. Complicated expressions appeared on their faces. The 2 of them were people with strong wills. Although they were shocked, their original beliefs wouldn't waver. It was just that their emotions were complicated, but this was something unavoidable. Is Taoist Rulai really aware of everything in the past, present, and future? Or is it just a precaution? If he really knows everything, then even if the Buddhist world is heading towards the Dharma ending era, some things can still be avoided. It's not something that can be explained by not being involved in karma. If it's just a precaution, then all of this is too much of a coincidence. The great changes before their eyes would affect the situation in the future, making it hard for everyone to grasp. Liang Pan's gaze focused. Under the control of his will, the Grand Imperial Palace moved closer to the central world of Saha. The violet gold light disappeared, leaving behind only the purest and most primitive light. In this light, a huge mass of chaotic chi could be vaguely seen. It was extremely unstable, trembling and distorting. In the next instant, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the center of the chaotic chi mass. The boundless power seemed to want to tear the great thousand world in half. Extreme Emperor Heaven opening art. Although he knew that the ritual had been completed, Liang Pan still wasn't willing to give up. He had to test it at least once. Sadly, from the moment the shattered Great Thunderclap Monastery was sucked into the black hole and condensed into the sky-reaching pagoda, the ritual had already been completed. It was irreversible. Although the extreme Emperor Heaven opening art of the Grand Imperial Palace was extremely strong, it was activated by the central world of Saha. The remaining violet light sea actually rippled, blocking the attack of the Grand Imperial Palace. The black hole distorted violently, and the entire void shook, making the Grand Imperial Palace unable to get close. The future Buddha Lord hadn't been born yet. This wasn't a trick of the sky-reaching pagoda, or the central world of Saha. It was a part of the ritual that the Gautama Buddha had set up. It operated on its own to protect the future Buddha Lord when he was born. At the last moment of the ritual, the light shadow of the past Amitabha disappeared silently. It didn't speak or move. Silently, the Gautama Buddha said, "I have already perished. There is no Buddha in this world to save people. Today, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord will be born in the eastern world of glazed light. He will save people again in the future." His voice resounded through the heavens. After he finished speaking, the light shadow of the Gautama Buddha also disappeared. The central world of Saha, where the sky-reaching pagoda was located, gradually changed. The entire world turned into a glazed shape. Light was emitted from the inside. It had become the eastern world of glazed light. The 3 seats on the top of the pagoda, the left and the center, were all empty. Instead, a spot of golden light appeared from the void and landed on the seat on the right that was originally empty. Chapter 1138. The words of Gautama Buddha before he disappeared spread far and wide, as if they were ringing in the hearts of every Buddhist disciple and believer. All the Buddhist cultivators and believers smiled and put their palms together. Welcome the future constellation of Buddha, glazed Buddha, to the eastern world of Vairocana. In the eastern world of Vairocana, in the black hole, above the sky-reaching pagoda, a golden light appeared from the void and descended towards the top of the pagoda. The moment the light appeared, Lin Feng vaguely saw a shadow flickering on the sky-reaching pagoda. That was another golden statue of the Buddha's disciple. Even though it disappeared in a flash, Lin Feng already recognized it. That was the golden statue of Muqian Lian, who was known as the number 1 in divine abilities among the top 10 disciples due to his remarkable abilities, publicly recognized as the number 1 in Buddhist combat under the Buddha. Before this, Lin Feng had guessed that there should be 3 golden statues of Gautama Buddha's disciple here, and they worked together to complete this ritual. Now, it seemed that this sky-reaching pagoda was formed by Muqian Lian's golden statue, the innate primordial essence that lived in seclusion in the Purple Sea, and the Buddhist homeland of Great Lane Temple. In the Grand Imperial Palace, Liang Pan sent a telepathic message to Lin Feng and Yan Nanlai. "Both of you, please attack together. The future Buddha's birth will not benefit us. The destruction of Buddhism is heaven's will. Rulai Taoist is going against heaven's will, and the implications are too great. It will also add variables to the future. Moreover, if we let him be born, we won't gain much from this trip. However, if we send him to nirvana, there is still a possibility that the essence contained in this sky-reaching pagoda can be restored." Yan Nanlai remained silent, while Lin Feng looked at him and the Grand Imperial Palace with a faint smile. Liang Pan's Grand Imperial Palace pressed towards the eastern world of Vairocana light. He continued to transmit his voice to Yan Nanlai. "Lord Yan Monastery, the Buddhist sect's action of purifying the demon race is truly unwise. After we have conquered the Great Thunderclap Monastery, we have read through many of the Buddhist sect's scriptures and found some clues. It is truly shocking. Although Taoist Rulai had already gone to the Dead Sea with your sect's patriarch when the great demon Golden Cicada obtained the Dharma from the Great Lane Temple and started cultivating, all signs point to the fact that Golden Cicada was just an ordinary autumn cicada. His life was like the morning dew. It was Taoist Rulai who enlightened his spiritual intelligence, allowing him to cultivate, shed his mortal body, and finally become a great cultivator. Other than that, Golden Cicada is not the only demon who has been enlightened by Taoist Gautama. It's just that Golden Cicada is the most famous and has the highest achievements," Liang Pan said expressionlessly. Ever since Taoist Rulai, Buddhism had already started to purify the demon race. Their plans were far-reaching and their schemes were huge, but they seemed to be walking on the tip of a knife. They thought that they were entering hell to save the people from suffering, but they didn't consider that they might not be able to save hell at any time and drag the human world into hell instead. Yan Nanlai stared at the Vairocana world in the east and remained silent. In the early years, Taishu Temple actually had their suspicions. Later on, during the battle to exterminate Buddhism, Taishu Temple also obtained many clues from the destroyed Great Lane Temple, which basically confirmed their previous suspicions. Now hearing Emperor of Zhou Liangpan's words, it was just another verification. Liangpan looked at Lin Feng again. Your sect in Buddhism discussed karma, shaking the foundation of the Dharma, causing Buddhism to continue to travel far in the Dharma-ending age. Countless Buddhist cultivators sank into the sea of bitterness, which gave rise to endless resentment and confusion, which merged with the incense and fire of all living beings, and also pushed for the birth of the future Buddha. Perhaps your master and disciple have sublimated the path of karma, but kindness and sin are entangled at the same time, so it's better to cut them off now. Lin Feng calmly spoke. If you want to talk about karma with Buddhism, Dao friend Liang, you should focus on the present. Your great Zhou led the extermination of Buddhism, officially starting the Dharma-ending age of Buddhism. Not only did you slaughter the monks of Buddhism, you even dug up the Sarairas. The restoration of your grand imperial palace must have refined a large number of Sarairas, right? Moreover, if we really want to talk about who broke the destiny of Buddhism, I'm afraid the Yuhuang Celestial Sea is only secondary. Lin Feng didn't continue speaking, but the moment his words rang out, Liang Pan's gaze flickered and shock appeared on his face. He seemed to have understood something, but he felt even more puzzled. Yin Nanlai's expression was calm, without joy or anger. Silently, he looked at the sky-connecting Buddha within the Vairocana world in the east. His gaze surveyed the surroundings and he sighed in the end. This technique is the highest achievement of Taoist realized Dharma. It wasn't done in a moment, but after a long period of preparation. Although he is no longer around, he is still extremely powerful. The ritual has been completed. Not only has it activated the power of the Purple Sea and the Black Hole, it has also temporarily distorted space and time with this as the center, shaking the entire Great Thousand Worlds. Although it's only for a short period of time, attacking the pagoda now is equivalent to fighting against the Great Thousand Worlds, Yin Nanlai said slowly. Originally, the Great Thousand Worlds didn't react and didn't reveal themselves. But as we increase our power, the greater the power, the greater the counterattack of the Great Thousand Worlds will be. Liang Pan stood in the Grand Imperial Palace, his expression as heavy as water. As he controlled the Grand Imperial Palace to attack unceasingly, he also felt the same way. If the Haotian Mirror was still in the Divine Land, it would be able to activate the Great Thousand Worlds and stop these changes. Yin Nanlai shook his head. The Haotian Mirror was a treasure nurtured by the Great Thousand Worlds. It was blessed by the heavens in controlling the power of the Great Thousand Worlds. On the other hand, if the Haotian Mirror was still in the Divine Land, the Golden Rock Great Sage wouldn't have dared to open this black hole. The ritual also lacked the final step, so he had to wait patiently. Yin Nanlai stared at the sky-reaching pagoda in the eastern world of Vaiduryanurbisa. The birth of the future Buddha is irreversible. Liang Pan let out a long breath and said resolutely, "There's still one last chance." The moment the future Buddha truly descends on the top of the pagoda, the ritual will end. It will no longer be able to activate the surrounding power of the universe to protect itself. Although the future Buddha has descended, he still can't compare to the power of Taoist Rulai at his peak. He still needs time. Liang Pan's gaze became calm and deep. We can't give him that time. Just as Lin Feng, Yin Nanlai, and Liang Pan were communicating telepathically, the golden light had already landed on the sky-reaching pagoda, occupying the right seat. At the moment of its birth, a pure, glass-like light lit up. It was even brighter than the sky-reaching pagoda and the eastern world of Vaiduryanurbisa. Amidst the glass-like brilliance, there was another light flickering, bright and dark like a star. The light dissipated, revealing a Buddha sitting on the right seat at the top of the sky-reaching pagoda. The Buddha's entire body was glass-like, and he had 48,000 arms. His arms spread out, and there seemed to be a star flashing in the center of each palm. This Buddha's expression was calm, as if he was expressionless. However, upon closer inspection, he seemed to be smiling. Excellent, excellent. I wish to reincarnate the boundless sea of suffering, and then redeem the people of the world. However, the sea of bitterness is boundless, and the 6 paths of reincarnation have fallen. It is truly regretful. I do not command the reincarnation, and am reborn in the Vaiduri Nirbasa. Excellent. Excellent. It was the future Buddha of the East, the future star Vaiduri Nirbasa, who had descended into the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa. Following the birth of this Buddha, within the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa, 10 shadows gradually formed around the sky-reaching pagoda, emitting a lustrous luster. Even though they were still only shadows and not real, Lin Feng could clearly recognize one of the oddly shaped shadows. It looked like a pestle yet not a pestle, like an awl yet not an awl. It was the appearance of the guardian Buddhist weapon, the Thundershock staff. For Lin Feng, it was already a rather long time ago. That was his experience when he just arrived in this world, when he obtained a Buddhist disciple's imitation magic weapon, the Thundershock staff. The 10 guardian Buddhist weapons of Buddhism were all earth-shattering treasures with great power. When the 10 Buddhist weapons were combined into one, it was known as the 10 Worlds. It was even more so the Great Thunder Monastery's treasure that guarded the mountain gate, second only to the creation magic weapon, Mount Meru. Right now, within the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa, the 10 shadows surrounding the sky-reaching pagoda were impressively the appearances of the 10 guardian Buddhist weapons. It was as if they were welcoming and protecting the future Vaiduri Nirbasa to be born in this world together. Outside the black hole, all the Buddhist cultivators and believers felt something enchanted in unison. Excellent, excellent, the Buddha is merciful. Namo Amitabha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Future Star Vaiduri Nirbasa Buddha. For the Buddhist cultivators and believers, this was undoubtedly the most exciting moment in recent years. Their hearts were the clearest and purest. But for Liangpan, this was also the most suitable moment to act. Although the future star Vaiduri Nirbasa Buddha was born, everyone in the black hole could clearly feel that the mysterious connection between the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa light and the black hole, the remaining purple sea, and the boundless universe was gradually disappearing. The future Buddha was finally born, and the ritual also came to an end. Emperor Zhou Liangpan, who had been waiting for this opportunity, immediately drove the Grand Imperial Palace and rushed towards the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa light. And at the side, Yin Nanlai looked at the future star Vaiduri Nirbasa Buddha and asked silently, "Enlightening and purifying a great demon is really too dangerous. Master of Buddhism, I admire your great ambition, but I do not dare to agree. Today, I can only offend you." After saying that, Yin Nanlai also attacked the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa light. Lin Feng's body did not move. The Golden Rock Great Sage abandoned the gate of the Sea of Stars and fled. The heavenly enchantress Great Sage also retreated without hesitation when the future Buddha was born. She was not reluctant to leave the remaining essence energy of this purple sea of light. He did not chase after the enchantress. Instead, he watched Liangpan and Yin Nanlai attack the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa light. Lin Feng did not help either side. Instead, his eyes were a little unfocused, as if he was daydreaming. Something's not right. A myriad of thoughts ran through Lin Feng's mind. According to the analysis of the orthodoxy left behind by Emperor Ruhuang, the future Buddha that he was born into should be the future Vaiduri Nirbasa Buddha. What's going on with this future star Vaiduri Nirbasa Buddha? But this is indeed Orthodox Buddhism. And it is indeed Emperor Ruhuang himself who was born into the future Buddha. It is not that someone is using Emperor Ruhuang's ritual to do something. This Buddha is Emperor Ruhuang's own future body, and it can resonate with all the Buddhist cultivators in the world, causing them to worship Buddha in their hearts. In the current world, among non-Buddhist cultivators, Lin Feng was one of the top in terms of understanding of Buddhist Taoism. He was even better than Liangpan and Yin Nanlai, who had destroyed the Great Thunderclap Monastery and obtained a large number of Buddhist scriptures. Where exactly did the change come from? What caught Lin Feng's attention was that after the future star Vaiduri Nirbasa Buddha was born, his gaze was the first to look at him, and not Liangpan and Yin Nanlai, who were attacking the eastern world of Vaiduri Nirbasa light. Chapter 1139. After the future star-glazed Buddha Lord was born, he chanted the name of Buddha. His 48,000 arms opened up and light shone from his palms like stars. The starlight turned into a world, hanging above the Babel Pagoda. In that world, countless Buddhas, bodhisattvas, arhats and diviners chanted together. The thunderclap staff, thunder sound ruler and other guardian Buddhist weapons floated together. There was also the Vajra wheel, Buddhist staff, golden alms bowl, golden pagoda, prayer beads, demon-subduing trident and other Buddhist treasures. There was also the Saha forest, temples, and Buddha's pagodas that stood towering all over it. And it was truly a rare paradise. This was one of the top Buddhist arts, Buddhist kingdom in the palm. Since the war between the two worlds, this art had never been seen again. Lin Feng had seen this art in images of the past Buddhist cultivators using it. The Battle Dragon tribe powerhouses could already feel its profundity. But now that the future star-glazed Buddha Lord was using it, it was even more amazing. It was as if the palm of the Buddha really had the universe and the land of bliss. Liang Pan activated the Grand Imperial Palace and attacked together with Yan Nanlai. But they couldn't get close to the Babel Pagoda. It looked like it was close, but they couldn't get close no matter what. Lin Feng watched the battle from the side. Just born and he already has such power and mana, as expected of Ru Huang's future body. However, to truly show his divinity and purify the world, he still needs time. After all, Ru Huang himself entered the Dead Sea and his life is uncertain. This birth was forced, it wasn't something that happened naturally. Otherwise, if he really had Ru Huang's great arts and mana, he could just use the Buddhist kingdom in the palm to take both Liang Pan and Yan Nanlai. He wouldn't need to block the enemy like this. Lin Feng very quickly saw through the trick and knew what was going on. However, even so, it is enough to make one sigh in admiration. When the Emperor of the Underworld had just been revived and returned to the mortal world, he was even weaker than him. After separating the Grand Imperial Palace and Yan Nanlai, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord's gaze once again fell on Lin Feng. His gaze was calm and emotionless, but Lin Feng could clearly see the complex emotions in it. It was an indescribable emotion. When Lin Feng saw this, he suddenly had a thought. That's right, he can't see through my past and future. If he can't surpass the heaven primal world, then he can't see through my past, present and future. This has nothing to do with magic power, but because of this boundless world. Lin Feng vaguely felt that he had grasped the key to something, but it was as if he were looking at flowers in a fog. It was rather vague. It seems that my existence is the greatest karmic effect for Ru Huang. On top of the Babel Pagoda, Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan were obstructed by the Buddhist kingdom in the palm. Their expressions were calm, without the slightest change. The Taishu mark on the back of Yan Nanlai's left hand lit up. The mysterious Taishu mystic light flickered. It was indescribable, and unfathomable. When the mysterious light came into contact with the Buddhist kingdom in the palm, it instantly melted like snow. It opened up a path for Yan Nanlai to pass through. Liang Pan, on the other hand, formed a spell with both hands. The Grand Imperial Palace once again used the ultimate emperor splitting the heavens technique. As it tore apart the mass of primal chi, it also tore a crack in the Buddhist kingdom in the palm. The huge Grand Imperial Palace turned into a flash of light and fell towards the Babel Pagoda. After Liang Pan had concealed his strength and cultivated with great concentration, the Grand Imperial Palace had already recovered its vitality. It was not too far away from its peak in the past. Previously, it had absorbed a large amount of Xiantian primordial essence chi in the sea of purple light to replenish itself. At this moment, as the light flickered, its power was extremely strong, as if it was endless. The future star-glazed Buddha Lord retracted his gaze from Lin Feng. He, who was originally sitting in the lotus position, suddenly stood up. Out of the 48,000 arms that were spread out, one of them retracted. In terms of quantity, it seemed insignificant. But as the future star-glazed Buddha Lord retracted his arm, his entire aura suddenly changed. Everyone's attention was involuntarily attracted by his retracted arm. Next, the retracted arm of the future star-glazed Buddha Lord punched forward, punching towards the Grand Imperial Palace from afar. When this punch was punched out, a domineering concept of being the ruler of the world appeared, shocking the heavens and earth. The Buddhist sect's most widely circulated and powerful combat ability, The Vairocana Scripture General Outline, Vairocana Buddha Palm Imprint. The strongest martial path ability in the history of the human cultivation world in the Divine Land. Although it was just a simple punch, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord's entire body exuded a domineering concept of pointing at the heavens and drawing the earth. As if he was the only one in the world. This punch directly blew apart the dual magnetic chaotic whole divine light that the Grand Imperial Palace had shot over. Although the future star-glazed Buddha Lord's punch also paused, the violent waves caused by the collision between the two still stirred up the surroundings, causing the entire black hole to become unstable. But after the future star-glazed Buddha Lord's punch, he immediately followed up with another punch. The Vairocana Buddha Palm Imprint had a total of 10 Tathagata dermic seals. They were the Foundation Seal, the Great Thousand Seal, the Infinite Seal, the Formless Seal, the Bodhi Seal, the Great Mahakasayapa Seal, the Wisdom Fist Seal, the Dharma Boundary Seal, and the Vajra Realm Seal. After the Great Thousand Seal that seemed to envelop the heavens and earth and engulf the entire Great Thousand world, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord immediately followed up with the Infinite Seal. In the Grand Imperial Palace, Liang Pan's expression was calm. As he changed his hand seals, rays of purple gold light lit up, and a domineering figure appeared in the sky above the Grand Imperial Palace. With a point of his finger, masses of air that looked like green chaotic holes appeared. It was the chaotic hole immortal slaying thunder. The chaotic hole immortal slaying bombs didn't strike the future star-glazed Buddha Lord directly. Instead, they revolved around a central point in the void, transforming into a massive cyan disk that headed for the opponent's Mahavairocana Palm Infinite Seal. The green lightning continued to explode. The disk blocked the Infinite Seal, but it was also shattered by the future star-glazed Buddha Lord's attack. The Grand Imperial Palace's chaotic hole immortal slaying thunder wheel. It has indeed been many years since I've seen it. The future star-glazed Buddha Lord chanted in a low voice. Almost without pause, he struck a third punch toward the Grand Imperial Palace. This time, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord retracted an arm, and used both hands to form a Vajra fist. The index finger of his left hand was straight, and the little finger of his right hand was wrapped around the first joint of his left hand's index finger, while the tip of his left hand's index finger was supported by the first joint of his right thumb. This was the Wisdom Fist Seal of the Vairocana Buddha Palm Immortal Slaying Fist. It contained the profound meaning of the inseparable reason, the unity of Buddha, and the unity of comprehension. The left hand represented the 5 great bodies of all living beings, while the right hand represented the 5 wisdom and 5 Buddha's guest crown. Placing the guest crown in the shape of all living beings was also known as the Great Wisdom Fist Seal. In Buddhism, there were titles such as Bodhi's Supreme Contract, Bodhi's Guiding First Wisdom Seal, Extinguishing Darkness Seal, Vairocana Fist Seal, Great Sun Dharma Realm Seal, and so on. Liang Pan was expressionless. He stretched out his right hand to draw a talisman in the void, while his left hand formed another seal. Purple clouds floated around his body. Different from the purple clouds surrounding Lin Feng, the purple clouds around Liang Pan's body were darker in color. A layer of faint golden light flashed around it, showing the might of a supreme emperor descending upon the world. The Tai Huang Orthodoxy, sovereign descending purple clouds. Under Liang Pan's full activation, a huge amount of sovereign descending purple clouds floated around the Tai Huang Imperial Palace, shrouding the entire Tai Huang Imperial Palace. In the purple clouds, golden light condensed into a huge seal. It was just a few strokes, simple but not simple. Instead, it revealed the true meaning of the great Tao being the simplest. As the light flashed, it looked like the word Tai. It was the Tai Huang's ultimate skill, the Tai Huang Dharma Seal. The unparalleled ultimate skills of the first human emperor of the ancient era, and the second human emperor after his death collided with each other at this moment. After the Wisdom Fist Seal clashed with the Tai Huang Dharma Seal, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord did not stop. He put his palms together, and the seal changed again. He raised his right palm and placed it on his left palm, and the 2 thumbs connected. Vairocana Buddha's Palm Seal, Dharma Boundary Seal. The 5 fingers on the right hand represented the 5 great realms of the Buddha realm, and the 5 fingers on the left represented the 5 great realms of all living beings. The overlapping of the two hands represented the unparalleled meaning of living Buddha. The thumbs and fingers touching each other represented the unobstructed integration of the great realms. Because it was silent and motionless, it was called the Dharma boundary seal. Liang Pan's gaze was deep. Although I have absorbed a large amount of essence energy, I still need some time to completely refine it. After I finish refining it, the Tai Huang Imperial Palace will return to its peak. At that time, I can use my other techniques to bring the Tai Huang Imperial Palace to a higher level. It's a pity that now, he frowned. After taking this Dharma boundary seal, there's still the last punch, Vajra Realm Freedom Seal. As he thought of this, Liang Pan did not activate his ultimate Emperor Heaven-splitting art to continue fighting. Instead, he temporarily adopted a defensive stance. The Tai Huang Imperial Palace shone with circles of purple gold radiance. The huge celestial palace of the immortal king was like a human wearing a layer of clothes. It was as if the power of the heavens was protecting it, allowing it to live a prosperous life. As the future star-glazed Buddha, Lord used the Vairocana Buddha's palm seal to fight against the Tai Huang Imperial Palace. His remaining arm actually lifted up the sky-reaching pagoda. One after another, Buddhist hand seals slammed onto the sky-reaching pagoda, causing it to shine even brighter, blocking in front of Yen Nanlai. Yen Nanlai's eyes narrowed slightly. From the looks of it, it's probably not inferior to the woodfern precious tree from back then. In fact, its potential is even greater. In the future, it might even have the chance to achieve creation like Mount Meru. Not only has the future Buddha Lord been born, but even the treasures to stabilize the fate of Buddhism and welcome the return of the era of righteousness have been prepared. Seeing that the future star-glazed Buddha Lord was not at a disadvantage against the two of them, Lin Feng still did not make a move. Silently, he only stared at the future star-glazed Buddha. His thoughts flew wildly in his mind, and the many clues gradually came together. Destiny and defying fate, to the ancestor of Buddhism, would not shake his foundation. In fact, it might even help him take another step forward. It might even be possible that he himself had already taken that step. But those are all matters of this world. In the end, it is within this heaven primal world. And the true exception in this world is me. My existence has caused the Ru Huang to be unable to calculate everything in the past, present, and future, unable to truly transcend this great thousand worlds. So that's how it is. To the Ru Huang, I am the greatest sin. No wonder this future star-glazed Buddha was born out of nowhere, and not the future glazed radiant medicine Buddha. There was a faint smile on Lin Feng's face. It's not just the future Buddha before me. Even the Ru Huang in the Sea of Death himself, and the current Buddha, Gautama, have been blocked by me. The Taishu Temple, the demonic race, the Great Zhou dynasty, and those who participated in the destruction of the Buddha back then. Their karma with him is in the past, and naturally has to be severed. However, the karma with me is in the future. Chapter 1140. Either Lin Feng no longer exists in the heaven primal world, or like the Emperor, or the future glazed Buddha Lord of the Star can detach from this world, jumping out of this world and standing on a whole new level to look back at the heaven primal world. However, the awkward part was that because of Lin Feng's existence, Ru Huang could not transcend the great heaven world. This is different from when Lin Feng helped Zen Master Dade. Just like how the obstacle to the Emperor's advancement does not lie in the opposition between the paths of fate and the path of defying fate, but in the path of the Buddha's elaboration of the thousand heaven and earth itself, an obstacle has appeared. To a certain extent, if Lin Feng could help Ru Huang resolve this contradiction, Lin Feng would first be able to transcend the great thousand world and reach the other shore. On the other hand, if he could transcend the great heaven world, then Ru Huang's obstacle would naturally disappear. At the same time, not only Ru Huang but all Buddhist cultivators, including Buddhist monk Dade, would face the same problem in the future. However, at the moment, the cultivation of others was still very low compared to Ru Huang, so they could not see the barrier that completely blocked the path forward. However, if a Buddhist cultivator continued to advance step by step and overcome other obstacles, they would eventually face the same problem. However, it was hard to say how many Buddhist cultivators could reach this step in the end. At least, up until now, The only person who could take the initiative to notice this was the Buddhist ancestor. This was no longer something that could be solved by discussing the Tao. Compared to the previous discussion of karma, this time, the foundation of Buddhist orthodoxy was truly shaken. In the past, the various sword Tao sects that were included in the cycle of the immortal heaven sword Qi would not be able to escape the circle of the immortal heaven sword Qi if they did not have other sword Taos that could invite the immortal heaven to destruction. The Buddhist sects faced a similar embarrassment, but this circle was not created by someone. This circle was the Great Thousand World itself. The future glazed medicine Buddha that should have been born had turned into the future glazed Buddha of the future constellation. This was only one of the external manifestations. Therefore, relatively speaking, there were only two paths in front of the Buddhist sect that were most feasible. The first was to fight and kill Lin Feng, eliminating this existence that should not have existed in this world. The second was to wait. Wait for Lin Feng to transcend the heaven primordial great world before the Buddhist ancestor, and the Buddhist monasteries could continue advancing. Wait a minute. Speaking of which, in order for the Buddha to transcend, apart from knowing everything in the past, present and future, he also needs to redeem all the people of the world and gather the power of faith. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth twitched. If I succeed in my path of transcendence, I might be able to help the other Buddhist cultivators, but I'll still be cutting off the path of the Buddha himself. I just don't know if he's aware of this. If he hasn't, then as long as I'm strong enough, he probably won't easily make things difficult for me. Instead, he'll patiently wait. But if he does, then things won't be good. Thinking of this, Lin Feng slightly narrowed his eyes. He looked at the future glazed Buddha Lord who was fighting against Yen Nanlai and the Grand Imperial Palace, and his gaze became complicated. The future star-glazed Buddha Lord seemed to have sensed something and glanced at Lin Feng. In his eyes, everything about Lin Feng was like a fog, and he couldn't see through it. Just as Lin Feng thought, for the Buddha, its existence was a huge obstacle on the path of ascension. Moreover, it was an obstacle that couldn't be bypassed. Either he cut his way through and forcefully break through, or he quietly waited for the obstacle to disappear on its own. In the ritual just now, before the Buddha of the East was born, the Buddha of the present, Shakyamuni Buddha, and the Buddha of the past, Amitabha Buddha, had already sensed that the mysterious and indescribable ritual had been inexplicably interfered with and was no longer complete. As a result, the Buddha of the East who was born changed from the future glazed medicine Buddha to the future glazed Buddha of the future. From the moment Lin Feng came to this world, the entanglement between the two sides was already unavoidable. In the future, unless the Buddha took the initiative to avoid it, they would inevitably have to fight it out. However, apart from this evil consequence, there was also a good consequence between Lin Feng and the Buddhist sect. Whether it was to find the Saraira to return, or to help the Buddhist monk Dade re-establish himself from the ashes, and to further perfect the Tao of karma, these were all good consequences that needed to be ended. Looking at the future glazed Buddha of the future, Lin Feng suddenly laughed. I'm blocking your path, but you're not blocking my path. The person who should be worried isn't me, and I won't take the initiative to make things difficult for you. Be my enemy or friend, it's up to you. However, I've always been friends with good wine, and enemies with swords and spears. I think you should be mentally prepared. If you want to fight it out with me, then we'll have to rely on our own abilities. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He didn't launch an attack, but began to absorb the remaining innate primordial essence Qi in the surrounding purple sea of light. Before ending the evil consequence between him and the Buddhist sect, the evil consequence between the Taishu Temple, the Great Zhou Dynasty, and the other powers was even more obvious. It wasn't just the Buddha himself, but the whole world knew about it. The Taishu Temple, the Great Zhou Dynasty, and the other powers naturally wouldn't sit by and watch the Buddhist sect grow stronger. There was still a fight between them. Lin Feng could also choose to help the future glazed Buddha of the future, sowing more good karma and leaving more good consequences. He could choose to continue helping the Buddhist sect, letting the good consequences deepen. This way, even if the Buddha wanted to end the evil consequence with him in the future, good and evil would be entangled with each other, and it would be difficult to separate them. However, although this evil consequence was far in the future, it was the root of everything, the end of everything. The nature of untouched evil was different from the evil consequence formed by the Taishu Temple and the Great Zhou dynasty. No matter how much good there was, it couldn't be eliminated. Good would be rewarded, and evil would inevitably be punished. Other Buddhist cultivators might not be able to distinguish between them, but the Buddha naturally could. However, this didn't mean that Lin Feng would take the initiative to gain the upper hand. At his current realm and status, most of the time he pursued the strategy of being the master of himself, and wouldn't be easily moved by the outside world. Constantly improving himself, strengthening himself, was the right path. Moreover, as Lin Feng looked at the future glazed Buddha of the future, his mind was also filled with other thoughts. Keeping the Buddhist sect alive isn't just leaving behind a great enemy for the Taishu Temple and the Great Zhou dynasty. It might also be beneficial to my future transcendence? Although there's a chance that it might become a problem in the future, but even so, overall, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. Just as Lin Feng was in the process of thinking, the eyes of the future glazed Buddha of the future's eyes also flickered with light. Their gazes met for a moment, and there seemed to be a hint of a smile on each other's faces, but upon closer inspection, there seemed to be no expression at all. After this glance, the future glazed Buddha of the future retracted his gaze, no longer looking at Lin Feng, and instead focused all of his attention on Yin Nanlai and Liang Pan. He formed a seal with both hands, the vajra binding the outside, his two middle fingers bent into the shape of a sword, and his two index fingers extended to the back of his two middle fingers. As soon as the seal was formed, before he even punched out, Yin Nanlai and Liang Pan's hearts palpitated. Even Lin Feng, who was watching from the side, felt as if the entire black hole was about to completely explode, and the entire world seemed to be shaking. The final move of the Vairocana palm, the Vajra realm seal. The next punch of the future glazed Buddha of the future's target was no longer just Liang Pan and the Grand Imperial Palace. Within this punch, the fist intent of the Buddhist sect transformed into a great light that illuminated the entire world, directly filling the entire black hole. The light rushed out of the black hole, illuminating the entire world. The huge black hole at this moment seemed as if it would shatter at any moment. The powerful fist intent, from the heavens to the earth, was everywhere, sweeping up the Grand Imperial Palace and Yin Nanlai. In an instant, the two of them felt as if the entire world had become a huge Buddha's hand seal. And in the center of the hand seal, there was a swastika character that covered the sky, enveloping everything. There was also an extremely domineering power within it, as if the entire world was already under its control. The past could not be chased back, and the future was hard to predict. Only the present, firmly grasping it, dictating everything. Excellent, excellent. I have passed through billions of Buddhist lands, passing through the 6 Daos of the Jambu realm without obstruction. Amidst the melodious Buddhist chant, the future glazed Buddha of the future carried the sky-reaching pagoda, walking forward. It seemed as if he was not in a hurry, but he had already exited the black hole, returning to the vast thousand world. Boundless Buddhist light spread out in the sky above the shattered Great Thunder Monastery, shaking the entire divine land, and causing countless Buddhist cultivators to bow down in worship. The future glazed Buddha of the future walked eastward, and with every step he took in the void, a green lotus would be born, extending far into the distance. This was the top Buddhist movement mystique, lotus step by step. Yin Nanlai and Liang Pan, who were obstructed by the Vajra realm seal, used all sorts of methods to pursue, but the green lotuses once again blocked their path. Originally, it looked like she had left behind a trail for Yin Nanlai and the others to chase after her. However, as the figure of the future glazed Buddha Lord moved further away, these green lotuses began to spread out, turning into a vast and boundless sea of green lotuses. It sealed off the void, making it difficult for anyone to pass through. Yin Nanlai and Liang Pan naturally had the means to break through the sea of flowers, but in that short moment of delay, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord had already disappeared without a trace. Comparing the strength of the two sides, if the future glazed Buddha Master stayed and fought to the death, the result would be unpredictable. However, if he wanted to escape, Yin Nanlai and Liang Pan would not be able to stop him with just the two of them. The only one who could stop it was Lin Feng, but Lin Feng had his hands behind his back and was standing there leisurely. He had no intention of leaving the black hole. Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan's expressions were slightly heavy, but after seeing that Lin Feng had no intention of making a move, they were no longer disappointed by this result. Liang Pan stood in the Grand Imperial Palace and glanced at Lin Feng, his gaze slightly complicated. Meanwhile, Yan Nanlai also looked at Lin Feng and sighed, "The birth of the future Buddha. It is really hard to predict what kind of changes will occur in the future. Is Sect Master Lin really so confident that you can control the direction of the future?" Lin Feng's gaze looked in the direction where the future glazed Buddha Lord had left, his gaze calm. "No one can completely control the future. Your sect can't do it. Fellow Liang can't do it. Even Emperor Ruhuang can't do it. And the same goes for me. We are all scheming. Who the future belongs to will depend on our own abilities." Chapter 1141. Lin Feng stood in the black hole with a calm expression. His magic power spread out and turned into layers of purple gas that connected with the surrounding purple sea of light, absorbing the remaining innate primordial essence qi. The future glazed Buddha Lord had already left and could not catch up. Emperor Liang Pan also stopped and began to activate the Supreme Imperial Palace to absorb the essence qi from the purple sea of light. Although Yan Nanlai did the same, there was no joy on his face. He watched as the black hole before him completely shattered and reappeared in the sky. He did not speak for a long time. Lin Feng also looked into the distance and contacted his disciples with his divine sense, informing them of the situation of the future Buddha's birth. "I came from beyond the heavens. If the emperor cannot see through my 3 lives, as long as I am still in this world, he is destined to not be able to transcend," Lin Feng said lightly. As his disciples who were the most knowledgeable in Buddhism, Zhu Yi and Wang Lin naturally reacted the fastest. Zhu Yi said, "Just as Master said, if this is the case, it is hard to say whether there will be a grudge between Buddhism and our sect in the future. A battle is inevitable." Zhu Yi had already returned from the Purple Mist Sea at the entrance of the Xianhai Sea, and then went to the border between the 2 worlds near the southern wasteland. Not long ago, he fought with the great sage Zhu Jian and forced him to retreat. Now, under the pressure of Zhu Yi and Emperor Qin Stonefeather, the Golden Paramitha Bridge and the Immortal Dragon City, the demons who entered the Divine Land from the entrance of the southern wasteland were all forced to retreat back to Infinite Wasteland. Moreover, they were chased away by the human experts such as Zhu Yi and Stonefeather. However, although the situation in the southern wasteland had changed from defense to offense, it did not make people happy, because the reason why Zhu Yi could return so quickly was because he had just arrived at the Purple Mist Sea and received news that the Phoenix Great Sage had already entered the Xianhai Sea before him to participate in the battle between the Dragon Race and the Taishu Temple. It was inevitable that the Phoenix Race and the Divine Wutong Race would be involved in the war between the 2 worlds, or at least in the battle of the Xianhai Sea. It would be fine if the Taishu Temple could withstand the pressure, but if it couldn't, as time passed, the Dragon Clan would have to divert manpower, and it would very likely affect the other battles. Zhu Yi pondered and said, "I just don't know how the revival of Buddhism will affect the war between the 2 worlds." Wang Lin said, "The future Buddha has just been born. Although he's powerful, he's still not in control of the current world. He'll most likely be like the king of the underworld, temporarily laying low and accumulating his strength. At the same time, he'll gather all the Buddhist monks in the world and rebuild Buddhism." Xiao Yan, who had returned from the Netherworld Sea and was guarding Mount Kunlun, said, "Zen Master Dade and many monks have left Mount Kunlun. But Zen Master Dade has said that he will first go to the former site of the Big Lane Temple to visit you, Master." Lin Feng nodded. As expected, he continued to say to Zhu Yi, "You and Tianhao just need to take care of each other in Infinite Wilderness vast land. Keep an eye on Taihua Mountain." When Lin Feng was in a stalemate at the gate of the primordial demonic ape's ancestral land, Shi Tianhao had already sent his parents back to the Divine Land, and then directly killed his way into Infinite Wilderness vast land from Southern Wilderness vast land. Zhu Yi answered, "I understand. The Phoenix Great Sage has entered the Xianhai Sea. and the pressure on the Taishu Temple has increased. Perhaps the experts stationed at Taihua Mountain will send reinforcements to the Xianhai Sea, which will inevitably make Taihua Mountain more vulnerable, but it will also easily attract other great demons. Lin Feng then said to Wang Lin, "Little Lin, use the array formation I've set up and teleport to Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. Then leaving High Sea and head west. Wait for the future Buddha on the East Sea." Wang Lin's heart stirred. "Master, you mean?" Lin Feng said. "That's right. You also have a part in perfecting the Tao of Karma. This good karma will also be ended by the Buddhists, so it will fall on you. What will come will eventually come, and it won't change because of these good karma. Since it's useless to keep it, it's better to end it as soon as possible. It's better for you to reap the benefits as soon as possible. I believe the future Buddha won't be stingy." Wang Lin answered. "Yes, I will follow Master's instructions." Lin Feng continued, "Little Qing, you and Jian Sangtian will go with your third senior brother. You can also bring along your younger disciples who need to train. It's mainly to increase their experience, but remember safety first." Yang Qing answered, "Yes, Master." Wang Lin listened and seemed to be deep in thought. Most of the demons who barged into the East Sea's domain passage are under the Golden Rock Great Sage. Lin Feng smiled. "That's right. The biggest winner of the birth of the future Buddha is naturally the Buddhists. Apart from that, everyone has more or less gained something. Only the Golden Rock Great Sage has suffered a great loss. Not only did he not gain anything, but he also almost lost all his assets. The enchantress stopped me from keeping him, not to protect him, but to make things difficult for me to strengthen myself. The Golden Rock's trip this time has really destroyed his own fate, and he may even have to pay with his life. Even if he doesn't die, it will be extremely difficult for him to make a comeback. Even if the forces under him don't fall apart this time, they won't be too far off. You two should go and send him off. At the same time, don't let the enchantress be so satisfied." Wang Lin and Yang Qing understood tacitly. "Yes, Master, I know what to do. Whether it was killing or driving them away, it was better than letting the Golden Rock Great Sage's subordinates be swallowed up by the enchantress. Moreover, the enchantress's whereabouts were erratic. If she disappeared this time, it would be even more difficult to find her the next time." After ending his conversation with his disciples, Lin Feng's true self remained in the sky above the Tempest Temple. The black hole in the sky had already disappeared, and the sky was clear again. But the land below had already been reduced to ruins. There were deep ravines everywhere, and the once majestic mountain range was long gone. In terms of the destruction of the land, this was the place that had suffered the most damage to the divine land since the start of the war. Lin Feng stood silently in the void. Although this was the land of the great Zhou dynasty, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou clearly had no time to interfere with his stay here. Instead, he directly returned to the capital of the great Zhou dynasty, Tianjing City. If not for the birth of the future glazed Buddha Master, he had already gained a lot from this trip. But now, in the long run, he had not been able to prevent the birth of the future glazed Buddha Master. For the great Zhou dynasty, this was clearly a loss. Although they were not on good terms with Xianmen Tianzong, and although Xianmen Tianzong's continuous development had brought great pressure to the great Zhou dynasty, the threat of the revival of Buddhism was undoubtedly much more obvious. Taishu Temple Abbot Yan Nanlai also left with a heavy heart. This incident had shaken Taishu Temple almost as much as Lin Feng's thwarting of the Infinite Wasteland plan. But today's incident was also because of the defeat that day, which caused the Haotian mirror to open the divine land and enter the mysterious sea. From then on, the situation for Taishu Temple became increasingly worse, and they lost control. For Lin Feng, although the final development was unexpected, he had gained a lot in the end. The most direct gain was that Golden Rock Sage's Gate of Star Sea had fallen into his hands. In this way, Lin Feng had 3 Gate of Star Sea at the same time. Controlling 4 Gate of Star Sea allowed him to directly open the Star Tomb after entering the Star Sea. Controlling 3 Gate of Star Sea allowed him to forcefully close one of the Gate of Star Sea. At the same time, Lin Feng had 3 Gate of Star Sea. This meant that as long as he was not willing, others could not open the Star Tomb even if they joined forces. There were only 3 Gate of Star Sea that had left Lin Feng's control. Their whereabouts were unknown and unknown. Apart from the Gate of Star Sea, like Liang Pan and Yin Nan Lai, Lin Feng had also collected the remaining connate primordial essence from the black hole. Although the future Buddha had been born, and the two sides would meet one day, the pros and cons still depended on Lin Feng's own plans. Lin Feng watched Yin Nan Lai and Liang Pan leave. Silently standing in the void, he communicated with the god of war doppelganger on the jade capital mountain of the vast land of heaven and wasteland. At the same time, he also communicated with his own Brontosaurus doppelganger. The Brontosaurus doppelganger followed the spatial waymark Lin Feng had left, and went to the medium-class world to look for the piece of skeleton that had been chaotically shifted by the world-breaking stone. Speaking of which, if Golden Rock Sage could escape from the hands of the enchantress, this piece of skeleton would be very important to him. Whether he could make a comeback all depended on whether he could get his hands on this thing. But Lin Feng had no intention of leaving this thing to Golden Rock Sage. Moreover, he could first avoid the calamity of the enchantress, and then talk about other things. Lin Feng directly sat cross-legged in the void and closed his eyes. After a period of time, he opened his eyes and saw the void on the horizon break open. Zen Master Dade appeared from within, arriving in front of Lin Feng and putting his palms together in a greeting. This old monk greets the sect master. Lin Feng faintly smiled. Master, are you going to the future glazed Buddha's place? Monk Dade nodded. Our Buddha is merciful and has been reborn to redeem the people of the world. It is a pity that I could not redeem the people of the world, because I had no merit before. Now I am willing to follow our Buddha to practice in peace, and redeem the people of the world from the sea of suffering to the other shore. All these years, I'm indebted to Sect Master's care and guidance. Only with Sect Master's guidance was I able to further understand the truth and achieve the Pure Land today. I'm very grateful. If Sect Master doesn't give up, I'll do anything in the future. This time, I am willing to be the bridge between Buddhism and Xianmen. In the future, we can exchange what we need. Listening to Monk Dade's heartfelt words, Lin Feng sighed in his heart. The old monk's cultivation was not enough to see the inevitable karma between him and Buddha in the future. Lin Feng shook his head and said silently, Monk Dade, you are too polite. All these years in our sect, you have been diligent and generous. You have contributed a lot to our sect. You have also taken care of the younger generation of our sect. I have seen all these things. I will not forbid you from going east to welcome the Buddha. I only wish you a smooth journey. Monk Dade put his palms together and bowed. Thank you, Sect Master. After bidding farewell to Lin Feng, Monk Dade continued to head east. At the same time, the Buddhist cultivators in the vast land of the Divine Prefecture, regardless of age, regardless of cultivation level, all felt the same and headed east. Meanwhile, some other forces were secretly watching them. Chapter 1142. When the Buddha returned to the Divine Land, the Buddhist monks naturally rejoiced, and the gloomy atmosphere from before was completely swept away. The various tribulations in the past had become a test for the monks. Now that they had passed through thousands of tribulations and did not fall into hell, what awaited them next would definitely be great light and great freedom. For a time, all the Buddhist cultivators in the Divine Land rushed towards the east where the future glazed Buddha Lord was heading. Moreover, many Buddhist believers in the secular world also felt their hearts palpitate and wanted to head east. If it wasn't for the fact that they had basically been taken in and protected by the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and other forces, at this moment, they might really disregard the danger of the demon race stepping into the Divine Land at any time, disregard the incomparably long and arduous journey, and wholeheartedly worship the reborn Buddha. On the Divine Land, there were also other forces that were paying attention to the sudden migration of the monks. Among them, there was no lack of people who hoped to use this as a clue to find the whereabouts of the future glazed Buddha Lord. Wang Lin, Yang Qing, and the others passed through the formation of the Kunlun mountain range and arrived at the Yingzhou mountain range. Then they left the Yingzhou Sea and arrived at the surface of the Eastern Sea. They did not deliberately look for it. Silently stood on the vast expanse of blue waves, standing there calmly. However, after a moment, when the sea and the sky met, there was suddenly a bright light that rapidly extended and covered the entire world and the sea, causing the sky and the sea to show a clear and pure glazed color. In this world of glazed light, an incomparably huge sky pagoda that was 48,000 feet long and 48,000 feet tall appeared in front of Wang Lin and the others. On the pagoda, the 48,000 relics that were condensed from Buddhist light shone brightly and illuminated the world, causing this world of glazed light to be eternally illuminated. At the top of the pagoda sat a Buddha. He had a benevolent face and 48,000 arms. Each of his palms shone with light, as if there were stars in the sky. Wang Lin and Yang Qing stood side by side and cupped their hands towards the Buddha in front of them. Greetings to the future glazed Buddha Lord. The future glazed Buddha Lord sat upright on the pagoda and looked at Wang Lin and Yang Qing, nodding slightly. His gaze paused on Wang Lin for a moment, and streams of light flashed in his eyes. After a short while, the future star-glazed Buddha Master didn't say anything. He stretched out a palm and pointed his index finger at Wang Lin. At the tip of his finger, a golden swastika symbol appeared. It left the future constellation glazed Buddha Lord's fingertip and floated in the void. There didn't seem to be any magical power aura or shocking power leaking out, but Wang Lin's eyes flashed as he stared at the swastika symbol. A stone silently appeared above his head. The stone was flat and its surface was smooth. It could vaguely reflect a person's figure, like a mirror. This was the fifth technique of Wang Lin's self-comprehended Yellow Springs technique, the Stone of Three Lives. The mirror-like surface of the stone seemed to be able to reflect a person's past, present, and future. The swastika symbol in the void was imprinted on Wang Lin's Stone of Three Lives and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In Wang Lin's eyes, there was a boundless brilliance that flashed in an instant. His white hair fluttered without any wind behind him. On the surface of the Stone of Three Lives above his head, there were also a large number of talisman characters flashing. The mirror-like surface of the stone became clearer and clearer. In the end, it was as clear as a transparent crystal. After a moment of silence, Wang Lin nodded. "Thank you, future star-glazed Buddha Lord." His tone was calm and indifferent. The future glazed Buddha Lord didn't feel offended. Between the two of them, this was the karma that had been formed during the discussion of karma. Without the cause, there wouldn't be today's karma. And after this karma was broken, it was unknown whether they would be friends or enemies when they met in the future. Wang Lin and the future glazed Buddha Lord could naturally form good karma again. He was him, Lin Feng was Lin Feng, each counted separately. The good karma between him and the future glazed Buddha Lord would not affect the other's opposition to Lin Feng in the future. On the other hand, even if there was karma that had to be settled with Lin Feng in the future, it would not affect the good karma between the future glazed Buddha Lord and Wang Lin. But Wang Lin wouldn't do this. Even if the future glazed Buddha Lord's cultivation was higher than his, it would be more beneficial for him to form good karma between them. To Wang Lin, the enemy of his master Lin Feng was his enemy. There was no reason for it. It wasn't that he didn't have principles. On the contrary, this was one of the bottom lines of his principles. Wang Lin was a man of few words, but he had always been a person with his own ideas. Today he had come on Lin Feng's orders to settle the karma that had been formed a few days ago. From Wang Lin's point of view, he didn't care whether he came or not. After today, everyone would have nothing to do with each other. In the future, if the future glazed Buddha Lord wanted to fight with Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, Wang Lin wouldn't just stand by and watch. Especially since he knew that there would be karma in the future. Wang Lin would concentrate on cultivating and raising his strength to prepare early. After the future glazed Buddha Lord had settled the previous karma, he didn't have any intention of making things difficult for Wang Lin and Yang Qing. Right now there were more important things for him to do. After sending Wang Lin and Yang Qing far away, the future glazed Buddha Lord lightly tapped the sky-reaching pagoda under his feet. The light that flashed on the pagoda became even clearer. The glaze-like light covered the entire heaven and earth, forming an independent world above the East Sea, isolating time and space. Wang Lin and Yang Qing stood outside and looked at this scene. Yang Qing turned and asked, "Third senior brother, is this the Eastern glazed light world of the future glazed Buddha Lord?" That's right. It should have been the world where the future glazed light medicine Buddha resided. It's the future world of the Buddhist Dharma, corresponding to the past Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss, and the present central world of Saha. Before today, it was only described in the Buddhist scriptures. It had never appeared in reality. Even Emperor Ru Huang himself didn't appear in this world. Wang Lin said, "Of course for now, this world is the current world of Buddhism. It's just that time and space are extremely mysterious. The past, present, and future are intertwined. There are indeed many unique aspects." Wang Lin looked at the inside of the Eastern Glazed Light world, where the figures of the future Glazed Buddha Lord and the Babel Buddha gradually became illusory. The Buddha who was born in this world was the future Glazed Light Medicine Buddha, but in the end, it was the future Glazed Buddha Lord. Yangqing pondered and said, "What is the purpose of him manifesting the Eastern Glazed Light world here?" Wang Lin answered, "To guide the Buddhist cultivators who worship him, and use them as the foundation to rebuild Buddhism. However, he won't be here to keep watch." Yangqing looked at the future Glazed Buddha Lord and the Babel Buddha disappearing, leaving only a bright and clear world like glaze. "If he won't be here to keep watch then," suddenly, Yangqing's eyes flashed slightly. She stopped talking and looked at the Eastern Glazed Light world. In the world, the shadow of a towering mountain appeared faintly. The mountain was extremely majestic and tall. It was like a world of its own, occupying the entire Eastern Glazed Light world. However, this mountain was different from the Eastern Glazed Light world. It was independent from each other, like a world within a world, existing in the Eastern Glazed Light world. Although she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, Yangqing could still recognize it from the images that circulated. That mountain is the appearance of the #1 treasure of Buddhism in the past, Mount Meru. Could it be that the future Buddha wants to recreate Mount Meru? Wang Lin shook his head. How can it be so easy? To be able to turn that Babel Buddha into a creation, who knows how much effort and resources he had to spend? This Mount Meru in front of us is just a light image, formed by mana and consciousness. Its purpose is to guide others to the Eastern Glazed Light world. Yangqing looked at it carefully, and gradually saw something. He saw that on the peak of Mount Meru, there was another Buddha's light silhouette, and its appearance was different from the future star-glazed Buddha Lord. Is that the Buddha of Guidance Dharmakaya set up by the future glazed Buddha Lord? Yangqing understood, looking at the faint light image and the light image of Mount Meru below it. Wang Lin said indifferently, "The future Buddha has just been born. He still needs some time to manifest the great magical powers of the past Buddha. This Dharmakaya can help him guide those who seek Buddhism to the Eastern Glazed Light world. With enough people and enough incense and wish power, this Dharmakaya can be cultivated into a doppelganger, a real Buddha of guidance." Wang Lin gazed at the world of azure light in the east. "And those who are transported here, once they enter this world, they can establish 12 medicine fork generals. Each of them will command 7,000 medicine forks as their dependents, and they will swear to protect the alchemist's cultivation method. Of course, now that the future Glazed Light Medicine Buddha, or rather the Medicine Glazed Light Buddha, has turned into the future Glazed Buddha Lord, the future Glazed Buddha Lord. As for the dependents of the future Glazed Light Buddha, who was guided into the Eastern Glazed Light world, we still have to see." Yangqing looked to the west and saw rays of Buddha light emerging. The brightest ray of Buddha light stopped, revealing an old monk wearing a white robe. Wang Lin and Yangqing were very familiar with him. It was Monk Dade. Monk Dade stopped outside the Eastern Glazed Light world. He did not enter immediately, but greeted Wang Lin and Yangqing with pressed palms. Unlike facing the future Glazed Buddha Lord, after Wang Lin and Yangqing returned the greeting normally, facing Monk Dade, they solemnly bowed again. "May the Master obtain the tranquil cultivation, and attain the supreme perfect enlightenment." Monk Dade returned the greeting once again. This old monk thanks the two benefactors. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look behind him and saw a ray of Buddha light stopping in front of him, revealing a body of pure gold, but the surface of the body was full of cracks. It was Monk Dakong. Monk Dakong looked at the Eastern Glazed Light world in front of him. His expression was not as peaceful and tranquil as other monks, but a little tired and complicated. He bowed to Monk Dade, and Monk Dade returned the greeting. Although they belonged to the Great Zhou dynasty and Xianmen Tianzong previously, and Monk Dekong was even related to the Buddha vanquishing war, at this moment, both parties no longer cared about the past, but only looked at the eastern glazed light world. After greeting each other, both of them entered the glazed light world together. After Monk Dade and Yang Qing entered, they walked slowly. Monk Dade's body suddenly trembled, and his gaze became complicated. He turned back to look at Wang Lin and Yang Qing, sighing softly. After circling around the light shadow of Mount Meru once, he flew up together with Monk Dekong and landed on Mount Meru. Green lotuses bloomed on Mount Meru. Monk Dade, Monk Dekong, and the other monks dispersed together, and everyone fell into a green lotus. They sat in the lotus position, formed a seal with their hands, and slowly closed their eyes. They were motionless and did not speak, as if they were dead. Chapter 1143. After Zen Master Dade entered the eastern world of colored glazed light, he looked back with a complicated gaze. Wang Lin and Yang Qing met his gaze and knew that Zen Master Dade had probably received a hint from the future glazed Buddha Lord, and realized the inevitable confrontation between Buddhism and Xianmen Tianzong in the future. In this regard, Wang Lin and Yang Qing could only remain silent. In any case, Zen Master Dade was a Buddhist cultivator. They understood this, but it was inevitable that it would be a little awkward. And Zen Master Dade, who was sandwiched between the two, was naturally the most difficult person to be. Although it was far in the future, whether it was Wang Lin, Yang Qing, or Zen Master Dade, they were not people who would numb themselves and deceive others. Outside the eastern world of colored glazed light, Wang Lin and Yang Qing looked at Zen Master Dade, who was sitting cross-legged in the green lotus, and they once again cupped their hands in salute. One monk after another crossed the East Sea, and came to the eastern world of colored glazed light. After stepping into it, they sat on the light shadow of Mount Meru and silently chanted. For them, this place was no different from a long-lost holy land in Pure Land. After the destruction of the Great Lane Temple, it had been a few decades in the vast Thousand World. Compared to the Buddhist cultivators with higher cultivation bases, a few decades was not a long time. Before the destruction of the Great Lane Temple, a few decades might have passed in a seclusion or meditation. But after the Great Thunderclap Monastery was annihilated, these few tens of years of wandering from place to place felt like years to every single Buddhist sect cultivator, and it was filled with torment. It was as if they were walking in an endless hell, and they couldn't see any way out or turn for the better. And at this moment, in the eastern world of colored glazed light, everything that had happened before had turned into smoke and no longer lingered in their hearts. Wang Lin and Yang Qing looked at the eastern world of colored glazed light, and turned their eyes to other directions from time to time. Slowly Yang Qing asked, "The forces that participated in the battle of Buddhist annihilation seem to have sent people over. Even the Mount Shu sword sect, which had been sealed off all these years, was alarmed." His eyes gently swept to a more eastern direction, and his face showed a slight look of doubt. "There seems to be people in that direction, but it is a little difficult to determine." Silently, Wang Lin said, "You're right. There's a return to void cultivator and a Mahayana grade treasure there. It should be the Great Zhou dynasty's Lord of the East Sea, Liang Jinglai, and the Great Zhou dynasty's Mahayana grade Dharma treasure, the Dragon Crouching Tablet." Yang Qing frowned slightly. "Isn't the Great Zhou dynasty's East Ocean King Liang Jinglai and the Mahayana grade Dharma treasure Dragon Crouching Tablet guarding against the demon clan together with Luofu Immortal Island's Tao Master Luofu?" Wang Lin said, "That was indeed the case before, but the demons who confronted them were mainly the great demons under the command of the Golden Rock Sage. In addition to Great Sage Qiongqi, who was killed by Master in the Sea of Stars, Great Sage Golden Rock has two other great demons who have achieved the unity of the Star and Soul realm. One of them is an expert from his clan, the vast Sky Golden Rock, who is also a golden-winged rock. He is generally known as Great Sage Nyekong. The other one is the Baifeng clan master, the Baifeng Great Sage. Tao Master Luofu and Liang Jinglai were confronting him previously. As for Great Sage Pifao, they couldn't stop him previously, and could only let him in. Wang Lin frowned slightly. Now that Great Sage Golden Rock is in trouble and Great Sage Pifao has disappeared, it would be unwise for Great Sage Nyakong and Baifeng Great Sage to continue entangling themselves with the experts of the human clan in the Divine Land. Moreover, the Enchantress will most likely target them as well. After Great Sage Golden Rock escaped from the black hole, Great Sage Pifao did not stay for long, and quickly fled when the future Buddha was born. However, there was no news of Great Sage Pifao after he escaped. He did not cause trouble in other parts of the Divine Land, nor did he return to the infinite wilderness through the domain passage. As the second in command of Great Sage Golden Rock's faction, his whereabouts were a mystery for the time being, which made Wang Lin and the others somewhat concerned. Especially when Great Sage Golden Rock and Great Sage Pifao were not around. The other experts under Great Sage Golden Rock were in a somewhat awkward situation. Naturally, they could not care about competing with Dao Master Luo Fu and Great Zhou Dynasty's East Sea Lord Liang Jinglai. They had to at least observe the direction of the wind first. In this way, Liang Jinglai and the dragon-subduing tablet were naturally free to pay attention to the changes on the East Sea while still paying attention to the domain passage. For the Great Zhou Dynasty, the impact and threat brought about by the revival of Buddhism could not be ignored. In a sense, it was even greater than the impact of the Demon Clan. The eastern world of Vairocana was located on the East Sea, which was no different from a fire in the Great Zhou Dynasty's backyard. Yang Qing turned to look at Wang Lin. Will they first attack here and destroy the eastern world of Vairocana? The future star-glazed Buddha Lord has left this place and disappeared without a trace. Although he has a connection with the eastern world of Vairocana, and set up a doppelganger to guide him, I'm afraid it will not be an easy task to find his whereabouts. Otherwise, the future star-glazed Buddha Lord would not have left such a big flaw. Under such circumstances, we cannot deal with the future star-glazed Buddha Lord. Destroying the eastern world of Vairocana first is a feasible strategy, Yang Qing said in a low voice. Although as long as the future Buddha is here, Buddhism can prosper again and again, there will still be many obstacles. Wang Lin looked around and slowly shook his head. We still don't know what the future star-glazed Buddha Lord has planned. It is not easy to destroy the eastern world of Vairocana. The time is too sensitive. Whether it is the Great Zhou Dynasty, Taishu Temple, or other forces, they all have limited energy. Yang Qing nodded. The future Buddha needs time, and the war between the two worlds has bought him time. Even if we can attract the future star-glazed Buddha Lord to come to our aid, Master has already decided to stay out of the current affairs of Buddhism. If others want to surround and kill the future Buddha, they may not have enough power. Currently, the Divine Land can be his enemy. The experts who have enough power are the Temple Master of Taishu Temple, Yan Nanlai, the Emperor of Zhou Dynasty, Liang Pan, the Emperor of Zhou Dynasty, the Tiangang Sword Venerable, and the Grand Preceptor of Zhou Dynasty, Zhu Honggu, the Great Celestial Wheel. In addition, Lord Xianyi, who is guarding Taihua Mountain from Taishu Temple, may also return. But among them, Master has destroyed Tiangang Sword Venerable's Heart of Sword. It is hard to say whether he will continue to be dispirited or recover after being destroyed. Zhu Honggu, the Grand Preceptor of Zhou Dynasty, is rumored to be in closed-door training. If Lord Xianyi and Yan Nanlai both leave Taihua Mountain and White Cloud Mountain, Taishu Temple itself will be too empty. It will be easy for others to take advantage of it, and the gains will not make up for the losses. Yang Qing said slowly. No matter how we look at it, only Yan Nanlai and Liang Pan are free. It is no wonder that they were the only ones who appeared when the black hole opened. If the power of the five of them is gathered, it is indeed impressive. It is hard to predict whether the future Buddha, who has just been born, will be able to resist them. But even if the five of them gather and successfully kill the future Buddha, they will have to pay a huge price, so huge that they will not be able to bear it. And if they lose their strength on a large scale in the war between the two worlds, it is very likely that it will lead to a series of subsequent disasters. Wang Lin nodded slightly at Yang Qing's words. He turned around and said, Let's go. Zen Master Dade and the others are here, so they will be fine. At least, before the main force of Taishu Temple and the Haotian Mirror return from the Xianhai, they will be fine. The two of them turned around and flew toward the East Sea that was connected to the vast land of infinite wasteland. Yang Qing looked thoughtful. Wang Lin glanced at him and asked calmly, "Are you thinking about golden cicada?" "Yes, according to Master's description and our limited contact with him, we can observe him from the side. Although this demon has many tricks up his sleeves, he has a strong inclination towards Buddhism." Yang Qing nodded. "Third senior brother, do you think so too?" Wang Lin said calmly, "If it were not for the fact that he was in a weakened state after the tribulation and was cultivating in seclusion, not being able to communicate with the outside world, this demon might have participated in the war to exterminate Buddhism. In his heart, he is a disciple of Buddhism. Of course, that would also solidify the reputation of the Great Tempest Temple in the hearts of most people in the Divine Land for colluding with the demon race. Therefore, whether Golden Cicada will participate in the war or not is still uncertain. But even if he does not participate, it will not be for self-protection." Yang Qing said, "In the past, Buddha enlightened his spiritual wisdom and turned him from a mortal insect to a demon. In his heart, he is a disciple of Buddhism, and I'm afraid he even considers himself a disciple of Buddha. Now that Buddha has returned to the world, it is hard to say what Golden Cicada will think." As the two of them spoke, they had already arrived at the sea near the entrance of the domain passage. The battle here had gradually subsided. After all, Golden Rock Great Sage had suffered a great defeat on the mainland of the Divine Land, and was more likely to be intercepted and killed by the Enchantress. He could not even protect himself. The demon race under his command had naturally become dispirited, and it was difficult for them to cause large-scale chaos. However, with Niekong Great Sage and Bifong Great Sage around, it was difficult for Dao Master Luofu and the Great Zhou Dynasty's Lord of the East Sea, Liang Jinglai, to counterattack. They could only advance step by step and recover the lost land. But there were still many ruins left on the East Sea after the war. Many islands were broken and sunk, and the depths of the sea were also a mess, with many abysses and trenches. As the landscape changed, some underwater volcanoes rose from the ground, and some even rose from the surface of the sea, forming new islands. There was nothing growing on them, and only volcanic ash could be seen. There was a faint flame flickering in the mountain pass, and it was still blazing hot. And some seas were destroyed into a dead sea, with no living creatures and no surging of spiritual qi. It would take a long time for them to recover. Wang Lin's expression changed slightly, and he looked into the distance. He felt that there seemed to be someone covering a large area of space, forming an independent world that was not connected to the mortal world. And from that space, there was a faint violent fluctuation of power. The cultivation of the two parties fighting would not be low, and the location of that space was very close to the entrance of the Yingxi. Wang Lin's mana swept up Yang Qing and flew all the way to the place where the space was, and saw a huge hemispherical object that looked like a bowl of the sea appeared in front of them, upside down on the sea. Although it was upside down on the sea, the bottom of this hemispherical object did not connect to the sea. The space boundary was erased, and the people inside could not enter the sea. And similarly, they could not break out of the hemispherical object from above. This hemispherical object was made up of transparent stone slabs that looked like crystals. Every stone slab flashed with a large amount of mysterious light, and there were ancient and demonic runes appearing on it, flowing endlessly. The whole thing from the outside looked like a huge turtle shell. Wang Lin looked at it carefully for a moment, and gradually had an idea in his heart. For the whirling turtle clan to have such cultivation, it must be a great demon in the realm of astral soul as one. Then, is it the whirling turtle great sage under the enchantress? Chapter 1144. The whirlwind turtle, like the mysterious underworld turtle and the hidden turtle, was a mixed-blood descendant of the black tortoise. After reproducing and developing to this point, it was already very different from the pure-blood black tortoise. It had also developed its own racial talents and demon soul bloodline. The current whirlwind turtle tribe of the infinite mainland had been recruited by the enchantress. Its clan leader, the current whirlwind turtle sage, was extremely old. In terms of cultivation time alone, He could be counted on one hand in the entire infinite mainland. The whirlwind turtle sage's cultivation level of the star soul unification realm also allowed him to occupy a position under the enchantress and be highly regarded. However, the whirlwind turtle preferred quietness and did not like to move, so he did not often take action. However, neither the divine land nor the infinite mainland would ignore his existence. This was because while the whirlwind turtle clan was lazy, most of them were greedy. Once they took action, they would plunder on a large scale, or set their eyes on top treasures. They rarely returned empty-handed. The great sage of the revolving turtle was one of them. The name of avarice was known to almost everyone in the great Heaven Yuan world. However, he lived in seclusion most of the time, so the younger human race cultivators or demon race cultivators would forget his existence, intentionally or unintentionally. However, among the experts under the enchantress, in terms of strength he was second only to the Zhujian sage and the heavenly wolf sage. In fact, even the Zhujian sage and the heavenly wolf sage would find it a headache to fight him. Although he had not experienced the first tribulation, the whirlwind turtle sage had accumulated a lot over the long years of cultivation. His magical powers and demonic powers were very powerful. For top experts like Lin Feng and the enchantress, the whirlwind turtle sage might not be mature enough. However, for all the Tao integration experts of the human race or the demon race experts of the star soul unification realm, he was a powerful opponent that could not be ignored. Unlike the mysterious underworld who controlled the mysterious underworld True Water, and the hidden turtle sage who was proficient in array formations, the whirlwind turtle clan had two strong points. One was that their physical body, blood, and energy were strong and had amazing defense. The other was that they had a unique understanding of the mysteries of space. They were especially good at confining and sealing spatial boundaries. Therefore, when Wang Lin saw the sealed space, which was independent of the vast thousand domains, he knew that the whirlwind turtle sage was fighting with someone. There might be other demons under the enchantress. Moreover, the revolving turtle great sage's side clearly had the upper hand. This bounded domain was not used to defend and obstruct the opponent's attack, but to cut off the opponent's path of retreat, and then encircle and annihilate them. The great Zhou dynasty's king of Donghai, Liang Jinglai, and the dragon crouching tablet could divert their attention to the eastern world of glazed light. Although Tao Master Luo Fu was nowhere to be found, he was probably not the one trapped here. Otherwise, Liang Jinglai would not be so carefree. Since that was the case, the great demons under the command of the heavenly charm sage were most likely the demons under the command of the golden rock sage. Because of this, Liang Jinglai and Tao Master Luo Fu were happy to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight when the situation was not clear. Therefore, they could divert part of their attention to the eastern glazed light world. Many thoughts flashed through Wang Lin's mind. He looked at the barrier that looked like a giant turtle shell in front of him and understood. Not only does it block the other party's path back to infinite mainland, but it also cuts off the other party's path of breaking through the void and entering the void battlefield. With this thought, Wang Lin's eyes flickered slightly. If this is the case, the demon trapped here is most likely the divine sky sage of the golden rock sage's race. The speed of the golden-winged rock clan was almost invincible among demons of the same realm. In terms of pure speed, few could match it. If it was the Baifeng sage of the Baifeng clan, although he was also a bird-type demon who had cultivated to the realm of astral soul as one, his speed and escape techniques were not his forte. It was easy for him to be chased. If the revolving turtle great sage or other greater demons fought against the vast void great sage, it was not that there were none who could defeat the vast void great sage in a head-on battle. However, if the vast void great sage was bent on escaping, there were not many greater demons who could do anything to him. However, the turtle sage created a space boundary to cover the divine sky sage and cut off his escape route. This prevented the divine sky sage's speed advantage from being used. If he were to face the whirling turtle great sage alone, he would still be able to think of a way to fight him head-on, or focus on breaking out of the encirclement. Unfortunately, the space within the boundary looked as stable as Mount Tai. The whirling turtle great sage was clearly focused on maintaining the boundary, and was not affected in the slightest. There were most likely other great demons within the boundary that were engaged in a fierce battle with the sea demon sage, preventing him from diverting his attention to attack the whirling turtle great sage. Just as he was pondering, Wang Lin felt the demonic energy in the spirit formation space tremble. It became even more violent and intense. The divine sky sage is going to risk his life. Just as this thought appeared in Wang Lin's mind, he saw a purple radiance light up in the spirit formation space. Separated by the spirit formation barrier, this purple radiance was extremely dazzling and bright. It caused one's heart to tremble, and it was unforgettable. The purple light looked similar to the Yudu Minghua. It was also extremely overbearing, but it didn't last as long as the Golden Rock Sage, and the enchantress had executed the Yudu Minghua. Instead, it flashed for a short moment. After this flash, the surface of the boundary that the turtle sage had set up instantly warped. It was as if there was an extremely sharp object inside that was piercing outwards. The boundary didn't shatter, but the void was warped, forming a blurry line that seemed to extend continuously like a path. The formless and shadowless space became clear at this moment. The warped void stretched all the way to the entrance of the Sea of Abode, connecting with the realm passage there. Wang Lin was slightly stunned, but he immediately reacted. The space boundary didn't shatter, but the void that it was in became unstable and started to merge with the surrounding space boundary. Naturally, it would first choose the place that was closest to it. At the same time, there was an obvious flaw in the space boundary. Compared to the void battlefield, which was stable at times and unstable at others, the Yinghai passageway was undoubtedly the closest and the easiest to connect to as compared to the vast land of Infinite Wasteland, which was further away. With the Divine Sky Sage causing a ruckus inside, and the Turtle Sage trying his best to maintain the boundary from shattering, he ended up connecting the boundary space to the Sea of Abode. In just an instant, the seemingly material void path that was connected to the Sea of Abode seemed to contain a huge suction force that sucked away the boundary space. The huge boundary rapidly shrunk until it disappeared. Then, the void path also continuously shrunk, retracting towards the entrance of the Sea of Abode. It was as if the entire void boundary had been sucked into the Sea of Abode. Through Wang Lin's dermic power manifestation and divine sense transmission, Yang Qing was slightly dazed when he saw this scene, but he quickly recovered. Third senior brother, shall we go in too? Wang Lin's figure flashed, and he had already rushed towards the entrance of the Sea of Abode. He was slightly interested in the violet radiance utilized by Niekong Sage. Even though he hadn't witnessed the exact situation of the battle, Wang Lin faintly sensed through his divine sense that Niekong Sage intended to capture Niekong Sage alive, or perhaps he had some sort of misgivings, so he'd given Niekong Sage the opportunity to escape instead. Wang Lin's intuition told him that the sudden purple light was the key. He Yangqing and the Tsangtian Dao Jian had originally come for the Golden Rock Sage and the demon race under the Enchantress. To them, even if the Sea of Abode was not their home ground, it was still somewhat convenient, and they wouldn't feel any psychological burden entering it. The world only knew that the Yingzhou Spirit Mountain was under the control of Xianmen Tianzong, but they didn't know that Penglai was also there. With the two spirit mountains in hand, although Xianmen Tianzong couldn't really control the Sea of Abode, the many illusions that were extremely terrifying in the eyes of the world couldn't cause any harm to Wang Lin and the others. The only concern was that the Sea of Abode was, after all, vast. Even with the two spirit mountains in hand, most of the sea was still unfamiliar and unknown to Xianmen Tianzong. The Divine Sky Sage, the Revolving Turtle Sage, and the others had entered the Sea of Abode, but it was still uncertain where they would land. However, due to the distortion of time and space, they probably wouldn't land near the entrance of the domain passage. Wang Lin passed the news to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also a bit surprised, thinking of the eastern Vaduria Nurbisa world above the East Sea. For a moment he found it a bit funny. Interesting, does this count as my backyard also catching fire? For now, the Sea of Abode was naturally not Xianmen Tianzong's backyard, but Xianmen Tianzong was the force that controlled it the most. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. The three mountains are currently in a hidden state. They won't be able to find them by themselves, so there's no need to worry too much. Xiao Linzi, you can do whatever you want to do next. Wang Lin nodded. Yes, master. After cutting off the connection with Lin Feng, Wang Lin changed his hand seals, and a black and white double-colored door suddenly appeared above his head. The left side of the door was as black as ink, and images flashed, showing the changes of the sea in an orderly manner. It was filled with an ancient and vicissitudes of the past that couldn't be recalled. The right side of the door was as white as jade, but the reliefs on it were constantly changing. It seemed messy, but it was also filled with countless possibilities, giving people infinite hope. This door suddenly opened, and a complete world appeared. There were many changes in the past, and the past couldn't be changed. However, the present could be grasped with one's heart, and the future was filled with countless possibilities. It was the ancient and present world technique of Wang Lin's four symbols world technique. Wang Lin flicked his finger gently, and countless light mists surged in the ancient and present world. They gushed out from the half-black and half-white door, and landed in the void space in front of Wang Lin. These light mists kept changing in the void space, turning into hundreds of millions of talisman characters. These talisman characters then gathered together, turning into a flashing path that extended into the distance rapidly, all the way to the entrance of the domain passageway that led to the Ying Sea. It was as if the spatial path that connected the boundary space created by the revolving turtle sage to the Ying Sea had been restored. The light wrapped around Wang Lin, and then the path of light also started to disappear rapidly. It was as if there was a huge suction force at the entrance of the Ying Sea, sucking in the path of light and Wang Lin together. After entering the Ying Sea, familiar white clouds appeared in front of him. It wasn't the first time that Wang Lin had come here. However, after the teleportation light stream disappeared and the light dissipated, Wang Lin carefully observed his surroundings and couldn't help but frown. This is really an area that our sect has never explored before. Chapter 1145. As Wang Lin moved forward, he sent a voice transmission to Yang Qing using dermic powers. "Fifth junior brother, don't be impatient." Yang Qing replied, "Don't worry, third senior brother. I know." Wang Lin nodded and didn't say anything else. He moved forward on the surface of the Ying Sea that was surrounded by flames and clouds, avoiding the layers of illusions. Even if he fell into these illusions, he could break free very quickly. However, Wang Lin didn't want to waste time on these obstacles. After Ming Kong Great Sage, Whirling Turtle Great Sage, and the others entered the Ying Sea, they disappeared, making it difficult for Wang Lin to find them. The clues left behind by the remnant dermic powers became difficult to track. The Sanctuary Sea was mysterious and unpredictable. Although it wasn't as violent as the Netherworld Sea and Sky Sea, many dangers weren't directly visible and were hidden. Even if one raised their vigilance, it was difficult to discover them. Most of the time, one would only be able to notice them after they had fallen into a trap. Most of the time, one might even fall into a trap without realizing it and fall deeper and deeper into it. When the three mountains of Ying Sea were hidden, the environment here was more complicated and dangerous than when the three mountains appeared. It was extremely difficult to track clues here. There were many illusions in Ying Sea that could even be forged, making it impossible to guard against. Xianmen Tianzong controlled the two immortal mountains, Penglai and Yingzhou. Wang Lin was also rather proficient in the Tao of Transformation, which was why he could move freely in Ying Sea. It's getting closer. Wang Lin sensed the traces in the space and his heart stirred slightly. Ming Kong Great Sage's demonic power fluctuation gradually became clear. Wang Lin followed the traces, but suddenly felt the demonic power fluctuation disappear. Wang Lin was slightly shocked and hurriedly went forward. He saw the white smoke gradually dissipate, and an archipelago appeared in the sea. From afar, it looked like it was covered in stars. The archipelago looked ordinary, but when Wang Lin looked carefully, he realized that the islands were covered by a huge array formation. The array formation was formed based on the geographical location of the islands and the illusion of Ying Sea itself. It appeared complicated and chaotic. When Wang Lin saw it, he pondered, did Ming Kong Golden Rock enter this array formation? However, this array formation isn't a naturally formed heaven and earth ancient array. Instead, it's man-made. There's actually someone who can live in seclusion in the Yingxi for a long time? However, when he thought about the netherworld ocean realm that the king of the underworld, Taoist Yu Ming, and the others had taken as their base, the scene before him was not particularly bizarre. Although Xianmen Tianzong had mastered Yingzhou and Penglai immortal mountains, he knew Yinghai like the back of his hand, and was still far from it. 3 mountains united and 2 mountains isolated were completely different concepts. Has no one ever discovered it before? Wang Lin thought, yes, the array conceals the aura, and is compatible with the sanctuary sea illusion. Those without sufficient cultivation won't be able to discover it. Even for me, if I'm not so close, I'll most likely miss it. If I hadn't followed the rock's demonic aura, it would have been difficult for me to notice it when it suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin frowned and descended. Be it the rock or the mysterious person who lived here, they both made him feel concerned, and he wanted to investigate. Using his dermic powers to resolve the array formation's restriction, Wang Lin entered the archipelago's sea region. As soon as he entered, a large amount of golden light flickered in front of him, transforming into all sorts of attacks that attacked him. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed slightly. The other party's attacks were very powerful, so he had to deal with them carefully. The domineering netherworld extermination realm was unleashed, and the dark and dusky void began to corrode the surrounding world, clashing intensely but silently with the power of the array formation. Space shattered, and the world turned upside down. It was a scene of disaster, but there was no sound. It looked strange and terrifying. Wang Lin's expression was indifferent as he swept his gaze across the archipelago. Finally, his gaze landed on one of the islands, and he descended. As soon as he landed, Wang Lin's brows furrowed, and a frightening killing intent flashed in his eyes. His body emitted a cold aura that almost froze the world. That was because he was shocked to discover that after entering the array formation, he could not contact Yangqing and the others, nor could he sense their existence. They had clearly been swept away by his dermic powers, but now they had disappeared without a trace. Who could kidnap Yangqing and the others under the protection of his dermic powers? Wang Lin looked at the island in front of him, and his gaze was cold and silent. There was no longer any emotion to speak of, and the netherworld extermination realm around him began to expand wildly. At this moment, the sky above the Yingxi that was shrouded in white smoke had completely turned into a dark yellow color. It was like Hades, and it was so oppressive that it made one feel suffocated. The seawater around the island had also transformed into the shape of the Yellow Springs True Water. The silent and dark Yellow Springs True Water had suddenly turned into an ocean. The island under his feet had completely turned black, and it was lifeless and lifeless. With this island as the center, the terrifying aura of dermic powers spread to the surrounding archipelago, corroding the space here and dragging it into the Yellow Springs world. The array formation that covered the archipelago began to collapse, and even the layers of Yingxi illusions in the void began to disintegrate and disappear. It was as if the illusions were also living creatures, and they were now entering death. The nearby sea was completely covered by the Yellow Springs extermination realm. Suddenly, a black light lit up on the island, and a figure appeared in the black light. Wang Lin looked over, and saw a middle-aged man in a white robe. The other party was also looking at Wang Lin calmly. Wang Lin frowned, but he looked in another direction. He sensed that there were 2 auras that had broken through the Yellow Springs extermination realm, and were escaping into the distance. The figure in the black light was just a figure that he had intercepted before the other party left, and then formed into a human figure. It was not the real body. What caught Wang Lin's attention was that the 2 auras escaped separately, and the general direction they took was actually towards Yingzhou Spirit Mountain and Penglai Spirit Mountain. The white-robed middle-aged man smiled faintly and said, "If I hadn't taken Xianmen Tianzong's core people and taken your junior brother, I really wouldn't have known that other than Yingzhou, even Penglai had fallen into the hands of Xianmen Tianzong. You guys have really hidden it from everyone in the world." Wang Lin did not reply first. He stretched out his palm, and instantly, a black aura wrapped around the white-robed middle-aged man's light figure. The other party did not struggle or resist, and let him do whatever he wanted. After the black aura wrapped around the white-robed middle-aged man's light figure, It circled around and instantly split into two, extending in two directions to guide the way for Wang Lin. While casting the spell, Wang Lin asked, "Who are you?" The white-robed middle-aged man's light figure replied nonchalantly, "You don't have to ask for my name. No one in the world has heard of my name. To you guys, I'm just a nobody. However, you guys will know very soon. I originally intended to hide in Ingzhou Spirit Mountain and secretly develop and accumulate strength. As long as no one can control the 3 spirit mountains, this place is the most suitable place for me. Therefore, I don't take it to heart that you guys have obtained Ingzhou Spirit Mountain. However, even Penglai Spirit Mountain has fallen into your control, so I can no longer sit back and watch. Although I've been living in seclusion, I know very well about the outside world. Now that the 2 worlds are at war and everything is in chaos, even if I show up, as long as I don't associate with the demon clan, I'm afraid the divine land will welcome me. If I can get Ingzhou Spirit Mountain and Penglai Spirit Mountain, Ingzhou Spirit Mountain will be mine, and there's no need to be afraid of your master, the master of Xianmen sect. Without the Spirit Mountains, I'm the one who has the deepest understanding of Ingzhou Spirit Mountain, let alone Ingzhou Spirit Mountain and Penglai Spirit Mountain." The white-robed middle-aged man smiled. "You Xianmen Tianzong are indeed powerful, but if I control Ingzhou Spirit Mountain, I believe the Taishu Temple will welcome such an ally." Wang Lin flicked 2 of his fingers, and a white light flashed in the black gas. He looked at the white-robed middle-aged man coldly, as if he was looking at an idiot. The white-robed middle-aged man was not angry and said with a faint smile, "Well, are you thinking that your master of Xianmen sect will come at any time? He can't come. If you don't believe me, you can try to contact him. Your junior brother has already done so the moment he was captured by me, but he couldn't contact him. The problem doesn't lie here, and I didn't stop him. It's your master who cut off contact." Wang Lin looked at him coldly. "Why do you need my master to take action?" As he spoke, he put his palms together, and the black gas and white light that wrapped around the white-robed middle-aged man turned into purple smoke. They split into 2 and extended into the distance. 2 images appeared in the sky, showing a white-robed middle-aged man flying in the Ying Sea. Their targets were Ingzhou Immortal Mountain and Penglai Immortal Mountain respectively. The white-robed middle-aged man in front of Wang Lin said with a faint smile, "One is my main body, and the other is my clone. My clone's foundation is not ordinary, and its supernatural power is not weaker than my main body's. Usually, I'm used to being cautious, and I won't think of swallowing both spirit mountains. Other than your master's whereabouts being unknown, through browsing through your junior brother's memory, I also know that most of Xianmen Tianzong's manpower has been invested in the war between the 2 realms. You guys are too confident in Ingzhou Spirit Mountain, and think that no one can threaten you. Not only is the defense weak, but you've also placed the family members of your sect on Ingzhou Spirit Mountain." Wang Lin's gaze became colder and colder. "You searched my soul?" The white-robed middle-aged man looked at Wang Lin and asked instead of answering, "Your parents' clans are also on Ingzhou Spirit Mountain, right?" Wang Lin looked at the images in the 2 light images. The other party's main body went to Penglai Spirit Mountain, while his clone went to Ingzhou Spirit Mountain. Although their supernatural power and supernatural power were similar, the main body most likely had magic treasures with him, so his strength should still be stronger. Wang Lin did not hesitate and directly chased in the direction of Penglai Spirit Mountain. While chasing, Wang Lin used the talisman that Xianmen Tianzong specially made after obtaining the Spirit Mountain to contact the colossal world across the Spirit Sea realm to inform Xiao Yan, who was guarding Kunlun Mountain, to quickly rush to Ingzhou Spirit Mountain. At the same time, he also tried to contact Lin Feng, but there was no news. When he contacted Xiao Yan, it confirmed this point. Xiao Yan said that he could not contact Lin Feng either. Flying in Ingzhou Spirit Mountain, Wang Lin frowned, and his eyes flickered in silence, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time of pursuit, Wang Lin finally arrived at Penglai Spirit Mountain. He rushed into the hall at the top of the mountain, and saw that there was nothing else in the hall except for the white-robed middle-aged man, who was performing a spell to refine Penglai Spirit Mountain. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel, We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.